subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Haired pirate. Atlas's lips curved into a smile, and he looked at Katakuri, who was looking increasingly gloomy in front of him, with a playful expression. "You want to die?" Katakuri was furious. He had already foreseen what Atlas was about to say. Even if he had a premonition, it was a little hard for him to accept what was happening in front of him. You must know that the older brothers and sisters supported and relied on each other in the early days of the Big Mom Pirates. So their relationship with each other is much deeper. Alice was a little surprised. He didn't expect Katakuri to have mastered the color of sight to the point of predicting the future so early. He just didn't know how much time in the future he could predict. He is truly worthy of being a guy who awakened hockey at the age of 3. His talent for seeing and hearing is almost as good as those who were born with the color of seeing and hearing. Hey, don't be angry, how about? Atlas saw Katakuri's furious look and couldn't help but comfort him. How about Lousy send you down to accompany him? Ha 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 ha. I have to say that Atlas's comfort was indeed effective. Katakuri's mood stabilized immediately. His eyes were covered with thick shadows, and the temperament around him became colder and colder, just like an all-pervasive lion majesty. Chapter 81 versus Katakuri. Hey, Brother Kanos, do you want my help? Gion's expression on the side was a little solemn. She had also heard of Katakuri's name. The current bounty was 600 million belly. His true strength was far more than this number. He was the most powerful pirate in the Big Mom Pirates except Charlotte. Linlin himself is the strongest. No, Gion Rear Admiral, just protect the warship. But I'm very interested in this guy. As Atlas spoke, he stepped on the moonwalk and walked towards Katakuri, his body covered in armament. Explosions continued under his feet, and the reaction force generated by the huge blast force continued to push Atlas's body. What an arrogant marine. But hurting my family is unforgivable. Are you ready to die? Katakuri looked indifferent, seemingly unconcerned about Owen's death, but there was a trace of sadness and resentment in his eyes. Adjutant, inform the helmsman to stay away from this sea area and pick up the Atlas Commodore from a distance. Hearing this, Gion no longer tried to dissuade him, but silently kept the warship away to avoid constraining Atlas. Yes, the adjutant replied loudly. Katakuri didn't stop when he saw this. His sight told him that only the man in front of him was worthy of his serious treatment. As for the other Marines, they are just trash, except for the female swordsman. Katakuri, I wonder if you have some misunderstanding about your own strength? Atlas sarcastically said, without mercy, he is the master of the formation who will not lose, even if he loses. No matter what, he can't give in. As soon as he finished speaking, Atlas looked solemn. A terrifying aura spurted out of him, and a depressing aura pressed directly on Katakuri. Conqueror's Haki, not to be outdone. Katakuri also erupted with powerful Conqueror's Haki to fight against him. Suddenly, countless black and red lightnings surged between the two. The violent momentum shocked the fish in the nearby sea and some sea kings passing by so that their eyes turned white. The violent wind blew away Atlas' cloak of justice. Hunting sound. After the two were in a stalemate for dozens of seconds, Atlas' conquerors slowly gained the upper hand and then forced Katakuri's conquerors directly back into his body. First round. Atlas wins. Katakuri said nothing and just pointed the trident in his hand at Atlas. Suddenly, Katakuri's trident spun rapidly, inexplicably, and continued to rapidly extend in the direction of Atlas, leaving a series of sonic boom sounds in the air. Nuatuan stabs. Atlas was not afraid at all and fired intense flames from his hands without changing his expression. The huge pillar of explosive flames collided with the trident. Razor explosion. Atlas moved almost instantaneously, dodging from the explosion of fire to Katakuri's back, just as Atlas was about to give him a righteous backstab. Katakuri suddenly moved his body sideways, and his sideways movement just happened to avoid Atlas' attack. See and hear. Predict future. Atlas has a headache. Although there are infinite possibilities in the future, he has no way to predict the future unless his knowledge is much better than Katakuri or his body can crush him. Attitude. However, Atlas's eyes showed excitement, and it would be more valuable to fight against such a strong man. Finger pistol Madara. Atlas instantly shot out dozens of finger shadows and stabbed Katakuri's body densely. Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. The finger pistol, with a terrifying sound of breaking through the air, instantly pierced dozens of finger holes on Katakuri's body, but it did not leave any blood. Katakuri's fruit ability is a special paramecia no fruit ability user, which can achieve elementalization effects similar to Logia. In addition, his level of observation and color is above Atlas, and he can basically predict it very accurately. Go to all attack points in Atlas. What a hassle. Atlas complained secretly. He didn't know how Luffy defeated this guy in the original book. He was really speechless. Bird rice cake. A whip made of rice cakes suddenly stretched out from Katakuri's hand, with a rich armed color wrapped around it, and it wound towards Atlas. Atlas didn't resist and let this guy play bondage play. Boom! A violent explosion sounded from Atlas's body, and the bird rice cakes on his body turned into powder and fell to the ground. Is this a toy for children? Katakuri. Atlas laughed mercilessly and activated the explosive power under his feet. Katakuri's pirate ship instantly turned into debris in the sky. Pieces of wreckage drifted alone on the sea. Damn it, isn't this guy an Esper? Katakuri stepped on the air, feeling a little angry. Atlas destroyed the ship, forcing them to fight in the air. As for the ability to fly, almost most powerful people will have similar skills. Skills like moonwalk are not a secret in New World, but they consume a lot of physical strength. Your attacks can't hit me. Marine. Katakuri looked at Atlas, who was also flying into the air, and tried to use words to break through Atlas's psychological defense. Alala, let's talk with our strength, Katakuri. Explosion Fort. The thick pillar of explosive flames immediately enveloped Katakuri. Ningli rice cake. Katakuri's hand suddenly turned into a bar-shaped rice cake covered in armament colors, rapidly hitting the blasting flames from all directions while his body kept moving back. Boom! Katakuri was directly lifted more than 10 meters away by the huge air wave. Razor speed explosion. Before Katakuri could stand still, Atlas attacked him at a terrifying speed. Can't see clearly. Katakuri's heart sank. He actually couldn't capture Atlas' figure. No wonder Owen was defeated by this guy. Iron Fist arms explosion. Unparalleled rice cake blade bomb. Boom, boom, boom. The thunderous collision almost set off a terrifying storm, and the sea suddenly became rough and huge waves rolled. Are you kidding? Is this a battle between monsters? You can actually fight the Atlas Commodore to such an extent. Nonsense. That is the highest masterpiece of the Charlotte family. He is indeed a man who dares to challenge Whitebeard. Atlas Commodore is still as reliable as ever. The Marines who were hiding far away all sighed in admiration. Even though they were far apart, the aftermath of the battle left them all frightened. Cyrus, who was wearing a Marine uniform, sighed with a complex expression. What kind of monster invited me? Chapter 82, White Heat. Damn it. Fighting in the air limits my fruit ability too much. Katakuri stood firm. His eyes were extremely calm, and he was not disturbed by the momentary disadvantage. He just locked eyes with Atlas on the opposite side with a look of knowledge. Suddenly, Katakuri's long legs split into several legs without warning. Each leg was hardened with an armament color, and then attacked Atlas at an extremely fast speed. Willow Cake. Atlas's sense of sight had been activated long ago, and his body quickly turned into a thin piece of paper, swinging with the air flow caused by Katakuri's thigh, and he easily dodged all attacks. Although my knowledge is not as strong as Katakuri's, I have at least reached an advanced level. As for armament hockey, there's not much difference in quality between the two of us. While Atlas was avoiding Katakuri's athlete's foot attack, He compared the strength of the two. Although Katakuri is the one person in the pirate world who has mastered the knowledge and skills to the highest level, this guy's weapon skills are not weak at all. Seeing that Atlas had neutralized his willow pancake attacks so easily, Katakuri's expression on his eyebrows became even more gloomy. At the same time, his legs quickly turned into a waxy quality, covered in armament color, and then compressed sharply. Pushed by a reaction force, it quickly rushed towards Atlas. Baked rice cakes. The upper part of the charging Katakuri's hand quickly turned into rice cake compression, and strong flames suddenly wrapped around it, covered in dark armament haki, like a bursting rocket launcher, and the powerful power almost tore the air apart. The powerful penetrating power penetrated Atlas's body in an instant, and Atlas's entire body quickly dissipated like the moon in the mirror. After image, Katakuri gave a crazy warning when he saw the color, and a large amount of glutinous dough flowed out from his body, covering his whole body. The rich armed color quickly covered the glutinous dough. Damn, how can this guy be so fast? Katakuri felt helpless. Just like Atlas was helpless about what he saw and heard, Katakuri was also very troubled by Atlas's speed, explosive power, and strength. Explosive fist-armed, a soft sound penetrated the thick layer of glutinous rice and reached Katakuri's ears, which made the alarm bells ring in his heart. His muscles tightened, and the glutinous balls produced by the super creation became a little thicker. Boom! Another strong explosion sounded, but Atlas did not show any joy. Katakuri had already been fully prepared for defense. After the smoke dissipated, a dark ball was exposed in the air. Soon, the balls turned into black, powdery solids and fell one after another. The howling sea wind passed by and disappeared from sight. What a terrifying knowledge of knowledge. Can you predict most of my attacks? Atlas twisted his neck slightly, moved his energy and blood, and said with some solemnity, Without waiting for Katakuri to reply, Atlas directly approached him, preparing to have a physical collision between men. Katakuri's reaction was not slow. His arms quickly turned into waxy balls and were covered in armament colors. Although his weapon color does not have the terrifying total amount like Atlas, it is still possible to persist in a protracted battle with the sight color. Boom, boom, boom. The two fisted and kicked, and the collision of armed weapons kept making metallic whine sounds. Atlas used life return from time to time to expand his arms, and the thick muscle fibers showed terrifying power. Katakuri, on the other hand, is like a tentacle monster, with his body splitting out countless tentacles covered in armed colors. He can always accurately block every attack of Atlas by relying on his ability to predict the future. It seems that Atlas has met his opponent. Guion, who was watching the battle in the distance with his sight color, was a little worried. Although judging from the current situation, Atlas did have the upper hand, but Katakuri's sight color was a bit stronger than Atlas. The kind that could predict Mirai's abilities were so heaven-defying that none of Atlas' attacks actually landed on Katakuri. Of course, Guion didn't know Atlas' current terrifying, self-healing power, but his slender and white hands had already touched Jinpyra on his waist. Although the duel was requested by Atlas himself, they were both Marines not going to sit idly by. In the mid-air in the distance, the battle between the two has entered a fierce stage. Judging from the appearance alone, Atlas does look more embarrassed, but basically he has not suffered any serious injuries, and Katakuri still wore the same outfit as when he appeared on the scene. Apart from massaging his numb fist from time to time, there was no difference. Damn it, there's no way to use the ability to awaken from the fruit in the air. Katakuri secretly hates that the awakening of his Nua fruit can assimilate the surrounding environment, giving nearby things the characteristics of Nua and being able to be used by him. But now there is nothing in the air that his Nua can use. The fruit was assimilated, and the only ship was turned into a wreck by Atlas. Is Atlas strong? Of course it's strong. This is a man with almost no shortcomings in physical skills, physical strength, and haki. Katakuri asked himself, if his observation haki hadn't been trained to the point of foreseeing the future, what would his chances of winning against such a monster be? The answer is I don't know. There are too many factors that affect the battle, but the odds of winning will definitely be smaller than now. Marine, I agree with you, but hurting my family is unforgivable. You should stay here today. Cut, rice cake. Katakuri's arm suddenly expanded to a huge size, and barbs appeared on the giant arm, a bit like a mace. As usual, it was covered with armed colors and then rotated at high speed. The entire arm directly turned into a waxy ball with a soft nature. Let the mace fly like a meteor hammer and go straight to Atlas's face. Well done. Atlas was not afraid at all. His already strong body quickly expanded to a height of 5 meters through the return of life. His broad back was like a ferocious grimace. Every muscle fiber in his body was dyed with black and red armed colors. A mysterious pattern is outlined from the corner of the eye and finally converges on the forehead. The whole person presents an explosive power and beauty. Return of life, arms, and martial god body. Boom! Atlas waved his huge fist and hit Katakuri's mace. Both moves tend to be more powerful, but Atlas with the Ox Talisman is undoubtedly better. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying air explosion sounded on Katakuri's body. Under this pure strength competition, Katakuri couldn't control his flying body and fell straight into the distance. Chapter 83, Undercurrent. Katakuri. You can't defeat me, even if you have the ability to predict the future. Katakuri remained silent, just looking at Atlas, who was talking to himself without any emotion. Atlas didn't care and continued. Even if you can fight with me for days and nights, you will definitely be the one who is exhausted in the end, and I'm not a fruit power user. Katakuri didn't question it. A man with such courage would disdain to lie. Moreover, he knew very well that he came out too hastily this time, and there was a female swordsman watching over Marine. He was definitely the one who lost in the end. Come on, give your life a final blow. Katakuri tore off the tattered clothes on his body, exposing his muscular upper body. He quickly produced a large number of glutinous balls on his body, and at the same time, the armor wrapped around him. Bring it on. Atlas took a deep breath and turned on his sight color to ultimate. His muscles tightened and his armed color became more intense. He knew that if Katakuri wanted to leave, he really couldn't stop him now. The strength gap between them is not very big. Explosive fist-armed. Cut, strange rice cake. As the high-temperature explosive power and the weird mace-like fists collided fiercely, the terrifying air waves hit their bodies crazily, and the surrounding air seemed to be drawn out into a vacuum zone. Both of them were violently thrown away, while Katakuri took advantage of the impact and flew away. Atlas did not step forward to intercept, but just forcibly stabilized his body in the air, quietly watching his retreating back. How's it going, Brother Kanos? Back on the ship, Guillaume looked up and down at Atlas, who was in a state of embarrassment, and said with a slight smile, "Unfortunately, he is quite strong." Atlas casually patted the gray stains on his body, then pulled off the cloth strip hanging on his body, looked at the adjutant beside him and said, "Bolton, please bring me some clothes. Thank you." "Got it. Yes. You don't have to be so polite, Atlas Commodore." Bolton was a little excited. After following Atlas for just a few days, he was completely impressed by Atlas's strength. New World, Tatolancy area. This is a dreamy sea area, filled with the smell of sweet desserts, gurgling cream, and huge ships singing strangely. This is the main ship of the Big Mom Pirates, the Queen Mother Anthem, surrounded by distinctive cadre ships, and the outermost are numbered egg-tart ships. These fleets form the powerful New World Overlord pirate group. At this time, the Psalm is on board. Big Mom, with a big belly, is sitting in the upper seat. Her originally ferocious face is particularly gloomy at this time. Katakuri is silent on the left side of the lower body, and on the right is holding a huge lollipop and extending it. Perispero with a scarlet tongue. At this time, the atmosphere in the hall was also somewhat solidified. Perispero didn't even dare to lick the lollipop for fear that if he accidentally got affected by the angry Big Mom, he might lose his life, because they received a piece of news that frightened them. The fourth son of Big Mom, their brother, Charlotte Owen, died. It's quite ridiculous to say that the Big Mom Pirates are a powerful pirate group built with family as the core and blood ties as the bond. But Big Mom's children have never felt the slightest bit of love from Big Mom. Mother's love can only be as harsh as a tyrant. Well. Are you saying that boy Owen died at the hands of a Marine? Katakuri. Big Mom's eyes with purple eyeshadow were now as big as copper bells. Her fat face came close to Katakuri. Katakuri could even clearly see the scarlet beads on her eyeballs. Bloodshot, looking like an evil ghost from hell. Katakuri remained silent, his eyes meeting Big Mom's without fear, but his stern look revealed his mood. As Katakuri, who has the deepest affection for his younger siblings, his grief is definitely no less than anyone else's, but the tyrant in front of her is not among those grieving. She just feels embarrassed. Well. You're such a loser. You've brought shame on me. Katakuri, why didn't you bring that Marine back? Sorry, Mom. That Marine is not weak. I can't help Owen get revenge. Perispero was shocked. Although he was the eldest among Big Mom's children, the most powerful one was Katakuri in front of him. This man, who was known as the highest masterpiece of the Charlotte family, was his first time. To hear this from a man whose back never touches the ground. Well. You're also a waste. Are you prepared to be killed by me? Big Mom was so angry that she laughed. Her thick face was even more terrifying, and her big, grinning mouth looked like the entrance to the legendary hell. Mom, calm down. Katakuri can't die. We'll have plenty of opportunities to kill Marine in the future to save face for you, Mom. Perispero on the side broke into a cold sweat, and he was under great pressure to dissuade the furious Big Mom. Just as he said, if Katakuri died in the hands of Big Mom, let alone the pirates, his strength will be greatly damaged, and the other younger brothers and sisters will also be alienated. You must know that Katakuri is their most respected brother, and Perispero has to admit this. Furthermore, the relationship between Perispero and Katakuri is also very deep. Several of their older children experienced the test of life and death in the early days of the pirate group. Well. I'll let you go this time. Remember to get that Marine's head for me, Katakuri. Big Mom also stopped activating the fruit ability after hearing this. Although he is moody, as a cunning pirate queen, he can still control his emotions at critical moments. After all, no one can become the overlord of the New World. It's a simple thing. Even Kaido of the Beasts, who looks the most reckless, has his own tricks. Yes, Mom. New World, G5 base. Ha! Atlas, you really are a kid, and that old woman from Big Mom will probably go crazy now. Needless to say, just by hearing this voice, you knew it was that guy Garp. At this time, he was frantically tapping Atlas on the shoulder with an excited look on his face. Atlas, on the other hand, reported the mission to Vice Admiral Crane, who was sitting in the office chair with a look of helplessness on his face. And with the passing of the news, the New World at this time can be said to be undercurrent. Chapter 84 Spy War New World, the sea area of the Pirate Alliance. The dark sky is brewing with a gloomy atmosphere. Swamps are everywhere, and mosquitoes are rampant. The entire island is like an undeveloped no man's land. The dense tropical rainforest and the cramped space make people feel bored. Hey, Shwesi, why do you always like such a dark place? Can't you choose a more normal place? A dark-skinned man who is 5 meters tall said, with some dissatisfaction. The horizontal flesh of the face is constantly shaking with the bite of the jaw, looking like a moving fortress. Yes, you're such a vulgar guy. If I had known better, I would have let me find a sunny beach. We can bask in the sun and admire the beauties in bikinis. That would be the enjoyment of life. A man dressed as a gentleman on the side echoed. But what is quite funny is that this guy has no hair on his head and has mean eyebrows, but his compact facial features are set on a big face, and the tie above his neck is also nondescript. There's a sense of comedy that resembles a cat and a tiger, but a dog. Ha. Yermak, Klaus, you two have a lot to do. Lousy just likes the feeling of mosquitoes sucking blood. A man with a sinister face and a long hooked nose said sullenly, and stretched out his scarlet tongue to lick his chapped lips in a disgusting manner. Okay, stop arguing. Let's talk about the purpose of this meeting first. Blood sighed. Looking at the people who were still quarreling, Francis couldn't help but remind him that he didn't want to listen to these guys complaining here. It was a waste of his time, not to mention that he came here with a mission. Okay, let's get to the point. Have you read the newspapers from the past few days? Bloodside Lackham asked in a deep voice. Are you saying that Owen of the Big Mom Pirates died at the hands of the Marine Nova a few days ago? Even their greatest masterpiece, Katakuri, couldn't do anything about that Marine. Of course, didn't you notice something from this matter? Our opportunity has come. Perhaps as long as we defeat a new world overlord, we can completely establish a foothold in the new world and become the undisputed pirate overlord. Lackham stood up excitedly. His voice was passionate, and his expression was like a church fanatic. Francis on the side had a strange look on his face, and he was a bit doubtful whether this guy had the same purpose as himself. Blood Scythe, you have to know that we are 4 pirate groups who unite to have a chance to resist Whitebeard and the others. But we are still lingering on, living in a corner of the new world. Yermak, dressed as a gentleman, questioned. It's really stupid. Can't you see clearly what Marine's purpose is? First the Whitebeard pirates, and then the Big Mom pirates. Marine has made up his mind to deal with these so-called pirate overlords. The new world simply cannot tolerate so many. Overlord, so we have no way out. You have to know that the Whitebeard pirates are a pirate group that survived countless encirclements and suppressions by Marine in the last era. Whitebeard himself is even known as the strongest man in the world. Just how can we challenge this entrenched pirate? A lion, although Klaus appears to have bulging muscles and well-developed limbs, it does not mean that his brain is not good. He clearly understands the strength gap between himself and the other 3 overlords. Big MOM pirates. Francis, who had been silent from the beginning, said and directly released a depth charge. Reason? Yermak asked with playful eyes. At this stage, no pirate overlord can be dealt with alone, so they have no other choice but to advance and retreat together. According to my information, the old woman from Big Mom is still pregnant and has not yet given birth. This must have greatly restricted her strength. Moreover, the eldest of her children, Owen, was executed by Marine, and the others, most of the children, are still too young and not strong enough. So this is the time when the Big Mom pirates are at their weakest. Like the Whitebeard pirates, although they have fought against Marine the most, they have not heard of any important combatants dying at the hands of Marine. Kaido of the Beasts, our subordinates, occupy Wanakuni, and the location is easy to defend but difficult to attack, making it too difficult for us. When we defeat the big MOM pirates, we can take their place and become the real overlord of the new world. And it is said that Big MOM has a red historical text in his hands. It is not impossible that the One Piece's great secret treasure will be obtained by then. Francis analyzed the current situation of New World with reasonable evidence, and, at the same time, the future blueprint he drew made everyone present feel excited. The other 3 lowered their heads in thought, their eyes flashing constantly, silently weighing the gains and losses in their hearts. Yermak sneered. Then they will be killed by Marine, and they will live alone and impelled down forever? Don't worry. Marine is probably in full swing with the Whitebeard pirates right now and doesn't care about us at all. Besides, we are pirates who live by licking blood from the edge of a knife. When did we become so timid? This is our last chance. I believe you all know it well. Yes, Francis is right. They pirates are no different from gamblers, except that gamblers are betting money on the gambling table, and what they are betting on is their lives. Although the risk is high, the benefits that can be obtained are also very optimistic. If successful, New World will definitely have a place for them. I agree. The always active Bloodside Lackham was the first to agree to Francis' plan, which made Francis even more suspicious of his identity. FK. Lousy just took a gamble. I don't have any problem either. Very good. Let's discuss the next battle plan. On a huge 3-masted sailing ship, a ferocious pirate flag was hung on the thick mast. The main body was an ordinary skeleton, but it was not a human skull, but a bit like a bear skull. The whole skull was covered with a huge scar. Crossing it, it looks even more evil. If you're a pirate in the New World, you will definitely recognize that this is the main ship of the Bear Pirates in the Pirate Alliance. The Bear. At this moment, aboard the Barbarian Bear, Francis was sitting on a soft office chair with no one around him. Half of his body was hidden in the darkness. He was holding a normal phone bug and a white anti-tapping phone bug in his hands. Bulu bulu hey. Francis, how's everything going? The drought location in Lousy has been reserved for you. The phone bug's appearance gradually changed into a strange look with two horns as the call was connected. Don't worry, things are going smoothly, Kaido-sama. Francis replied calmly. That's good. With a click, the phone was hung up directly. Francis was not angry and continued his hand movements, and the phone bug rang again. Brew, how about it? Sir, things are going very well. Thanks to that Marine Star, I can blend into the Beast Pirates after it's over. Very good. Don't live up to the Zoan, Bear Fruit, and Ancient Seed we gave you. You can enter CP0 directly after the undercover operation is over. Don't be exposed. You know the result of failure. Yes. Bang. The sound of the phone hanging up sounded again. Chapter 85 The Storm is coming. New World, G5 Baseport. A huge Marine-style warship docked at the port. There were about 1,000 Marine soldiers neatly arranged on the deck of the warship, headed by the smiling Rear Admiral. Atlas stood at the port and looked at Brother Jaji, who was still as charming as ever, and said hello with a smile. Today, Atlas was arranged by the Crane Vice Admiral to come here to receive the combat forces specially sent by the headquarters. She originally had a share of Guion, but she heard that Cake was coming too, so she found an excuse and ran away. Atlas can be left to suffer here alone. Hey, Atlas, why don't you see Miss Guion? I'm planning to confess my 99th love to her. Jiaji was disappointed when he saw that Atlas was the only one at the port. A Guion Rear Admiral has something to do temporarily, so I'm the only one here. Atlas explained somewhat far-fetchedly. It is impossible to directly say that Guion found an excuse to run away to avoid you. By the way, didn't Crane Vice Admiral say that Akiji Vice Admiral also came to New World to support him? Why didn't he see anyone? Alice was a little confused. He and Kage had been talking for a while. What happened to Akiji? Didn't you get off the warship? Akiji Vice Admiral. Just as Jaji was about to explain, a lazy voice came from not far away from the port. Alala, I'm so sorry, Brother Kanos, for keeping you waiting for so long. Atlas followed the sound and saw Akiji wearing a marine justice cloak, a white suit, and a dark blue shirt, riding a bicycle slowly from the sea. A not-so-wide ice layer kept appearing under the bicycle's tires. As the tires rolled, Akiji, with half-draped eyelids, kept yawning, as if he was about to fall asleep at any moment, and his whole person showed a lazy temperament. Akiji Vice Admiral. Atlas stood in silence and gave a standard military salute. Akiji casually put away his bicycle and handed it to the Marine soldier on the side, waved to Atlas, and walked straight to Garp's office. Alala, Brother Kanos, let's go. The wind is going to blow. Wanakuni, the Island of Ghosts. Brother Kaido, should we Beast Pirates get involved in the upcoming war in New World and make New World even more chaotic? Fire Calamity. Jin is a burly man covered in black clothing, including his face. The huge wings on his back are constantly spitting out flames. There's a long knife hanging on his waist. The only thing exposed to the air is his eyes looked towards Kaido, who was taking a swig of wine. No need. We can just stay aside and watch the fire, but Lousy is going to stir up the trouble. Now only this kind of top-level battle can make me excited. Ha ha ha. After Kaido finished speaking, he drank all the wine in the wine gourd. The clear wine flowed along his beard and onto the ground. The dripping accompaniment echoed in the space, echoing Kaido's proud laughter. Aboard Moby DK, Dad, Marine's actions have become more and more frequent recently. A large number of troops have been gathering in the New World. Are they prepared to attack us at all costs? Marco's eyebrows were a little worried, although he had no intention of doing so. He is afraid of Marine and has no ambitions for the Pirate King. He just wants to live with his father like this forever, and it would be even better if he can make his father the Pirate King. Marco, don't worry so much. If Marine wants to clean up New World the world government will be the first to disagree. Moreover, the other pirates in New World are not vegetarians. If Marine wants to chew this bone, he will probably damage it with his teeth. Break to pieces. Vista on the side analyzed that he was very clear about the urinal nature of the world government. It is impossible for the 5 elders to sit back and watch Marine continue to grow or its power to weaken significantly. There is only one thing they pursue: balance. The entire world is like a chess game to the 5 elders. As chess players, what they have to ensure is that the balance of the major forces is not broken, so that the rule of the world government is not threatened. Gulalala. Marco, Bista is right. Don't worry too much. Lousy is Whitebeard. New World, G5 base, staff office. At this time, the small office gathered all the existing high-level officials of the G5 base. Of course, Atlas is among them. Although his military rank is only Commodore level, his strength has been recognized by everyone present, so he can be regarded as a high-level person. Tsuru Vice Admiral is still sitting upright behind the desk. Sitting on the reception chairs on the left and right sides are 2 alternate admirals, Main Vice Admiral Akainu and Akiji. Garp is standing next to Tsuru Vice Admiral. Chewing donuts, crumbs kept splattering from his mouth onto the desk. Okay, everyone is here. Let me talk about the personnel distribution and arrangements for the next battle. Crane Vice Admiral looked around. His ears automatically blocked the sound of Garp chewing and spoke slowly. Garp, Sakazuki, Cake, Gyon, you guys will lead some Marines to stop the Whitebeard pirates. And you also need to be prepared to prevent Kaido from causing trouble on the battlefield. Your combat power should be enough. Kazan, you and Atlas will lead some troops to the Tato Land Sea area. According to the information passed by the CP department, the Pirate Alliance's target is the big MOM pirates. If the big MOM side falls into defeat by then, if so, you will take the opportunity to destroy them and then attack the Pirate Alliance. Of course, there's a high probability that the Pirate Alliance will lose. The intelligence capabilities of the Tato land waters cannot be underestimated. We will just defeat the so-called Pirate Alliance later. As for Kaido's beast pirates, they probably won't show up. Kaido also knows that Wanakuni's position is dangerous. We Marine can't go to the trouble of provoking them, so we don't need to allocate troops, but I will arrange for personnel to keep watch. Alala Crane Vice Admiral, don't worry, not a single pirate in the Pirate Alliance can escape. Akiji also put away his lazy expression and assured with confidence. In a new world at this moment, whether it is the Big Mom pirates or large and small pirate groups, they all smell an unusual smell. Behind the scenes, there are countless pirates gearing up to fight in this world that is about to overthrow. Take a piece of the World War. The wind of a new era is about to blow into the new world. Chapter 86 Outbreak, See Circle Calendar, January 1506, New World, Tato Land Sea Area. The huge Queen Mother anthem was moored quietly on the sea. The entire hull swayed left and right with the ripples of the sea. The strangely shaped collision had emitted a gentle chant. It was surrounded by large and small pirate ships. Without exception, they all wore the iconic red lip waving skull and crossbones flag. On board the anthem, he had just given birth not long ago and successfully gave birth to his 75th son. He was not as weak as an ordinary woman. Instead, he kept earth coating the tablecloth and poured the desserts inside the tablecloth into his mouth. The servants on both sides quickly changed them. A table of new desserts, and the cycle repeats. Mom, Katsu sent a picture and discovered that the fleet of the Pirate Alliance has invaded our waters of all nations. It's still Perispero. In fact, he doesn't dare to disturb Big Mom while he's eating. After all, once the attack of Suryae occurs, the entire world will probably be destroyed. But this time the situation is too urgent. Perispero had no choice but to bite the bullet and report it. Huh? What did you say? Hearing Perispero's words, Big Mom immediately stopped eating. The big, crimson Kazalan eyes were staring straight at Perispero, and his big mouth was grinning almost to the base of his ears. Dropping corrosive saliva, it seemed that Perispero was going to eat him alive without saying a word. Mom, the so-called Pirate Alliance has invaded the waters of Tato Land. It seems that they regard us as their target. Perospero swallowed hard and said cautiously, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead under Big Mom's gaze. Well, well, well. Even those losers dare to take advantage of my Tato land. They really underestimate me. Perospero, go and gather the fleet with Katakuri. I want to kill them personally. This is treating me as a soft persimmon. But, Mom, your body has just given birth. I'm afraid, Perospero said with some worry. Big Mom can be said to be the core of the pirate group. Without her, Perospero and the others he's not really a pirate overlord at all. Huh, are you teaching me how to do things? Perospero, you are just my son. Know your place. Big Mom's expression collapsed, and the aura that had been suppressing him for many years suddenly came to his face. Perospero was so frightened that his back was almost wet, and he nodded in agreement. Outskirts of Tato Lancy area, 4 ships with unique characteristics sailed into this dreamy sea area. The various ferocious collisions were incompatible with the surrounding environment. The 4 pirate groups of the Pirate Alliance led their respective pirates in a big. The territory of the MOM pirates launched a challenge to the pirate overlord who dominates the New World without any warning. The captains of the 4 pirate groups looked excited and solemn, as if they were about to become the overlords of the New World, and even the throne of the Pirate King could be glimpsed. Well, 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 you 4 idiots, do you think I'm a soft persimmon? It's really unpleasant. Before they could be happy for a long time, Big Mom, who came after hearing the news, stood at the bow of the Anthem, holding a giant sword named Napoleon in his hand, surrounded by the 2 homies, Zeus and Prometheus, respectively, in charge of thunder and fire. Hehehe. Old woman, the old era has passed. There's no ship that can carry you in the new era. It's time to get off the ship and make room for us young people. With a gloomy look on his face, Lackham took a decisive step forward and pushed back Big Mom's words without fear. Well, 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 what a bunch of ungrateful guys. Katakuri, take this guy's head and bring him to see me. Yes, Mom. He. Yermak, you and Francis can contain Big Mom, and Katakuri will be left to me. Leckham said with confidence. He is a user with Paramecia blood fruit ability. He can affect the blood in the enemy's body and accelerate his own blood flow to enhance combat effectiveness. He has already awakened the fruit's ability, and there is no way he can do it. Fear of Katakuri. Damn it! Yermak and Francis cursed angrily in their hearts at the same time. They knew that Katakuri and Big Mom were not on the same level of strength, but they didn't expect that this guy Lackham would take the initiative and get rid of them. Together, they can only bite the bullet now. Well, 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 you've actually been underestimated. When Big Mom heard Lackham's words, he immediately laughed angrily and kept letting out strange laughter from his bloody mouth. An invisible sound wave suddenly started from Big Mom and spread towards the Pirate Alliance. Conqueror's Hockey. Time seemed to freeze in the entire sea area. The pirates who were still shouting suddenly became silent. Their eyes were empty and their mouths were half open and half closed. As if their souls had been extracted, they fell down and fell unconscious. Bah! Conqueror's Hockey. Oh my God! What kind of monster is this? Such a terrifying Conqueror's Hockey. We actually have to fight against such a monster. We are simply going to die. Captain, let's retreat. The Big Mom pirates are simply not something we can compete with. The person who barely managed to stay awake in front of Big Mom's conquerors suddenly felt like his legs were like chaff, and the hairs all over his body stood up, like a frightened cat, with no trace of courage. Why are you panicking? She's just an old woman, just the conquerors. Several captains shouted to calm down the flustered people. In fact, they were a little worried. Although the 4 of them, except Francis, all had conquerors, compared to Big Mom's conquerors, their conquerors were like candles in the wind. Cannot be compared with it at all. Everyone! Attack everyone! Blood sickle. Lackham couldn't sit still anymore and decisively activated his fruit power to meet Katakuri. The other 3 also found their corresponding opponents to fight. He knew that if the battle didn't start, their side would be completely defeated. Well, well, well. Zeus. Thunder. Yes. Mom. The expression of Zeus floating in midair suddenly became ferocious, His whole body was dark, and a giant thunder pillar landed without warning, like a terrifying power like a natural disaster. Yin Thundercloud. Yermak is a user with Logia Yin Fruit ability and is not afraid of Zeus' attack. In fact, they also know that Lakham is not simply trying to trap the two of them. As the biggest boss present, they all know the three major homais owned by Charlotte Linlin. Yermak's Yin Fruit first destroyed Big Mom's Zeus, and Francis is an Esper in the form of Zoan, Bear Fruit, Ancient Species, and Brutal Bear. The fruit's ability is close to the awakened state. It can be said that the ability to withstand beatings is indispensable. People are better than others, so the two of them are the best choice to be responsible for entangling Big Mom. Chapter 87. This road is blocked when Aokiji and Atlas arrived at Tado Land. The Big Mom pirates were already fighting with the Pirate Alliance. The entire sea area of Tado Land is filled with the sounds of gunfire and fighting, and the sea is dyed red under the smoke. But looking at the overall situation, the Pirate Alliance is basically suppressed by the Big Mom pirates. Big Mom alone is difficult for them to resist, even the Big Mom that has just been produced. And Yermak and Francis, who were dealing with Big Mom, were secretly complaining. They didn't have much power to resist Big Mom. Her terrifying body talent of steel balloon made them unable to resist. She was helpless, not to mention that the two homets in her hands gave her a wide range of AoE skills. What a crazy woman. Yermak complained crazily in his heart. Big Mom didn't care about their own battle situation at all. They just released the Thunder Flames crazily, which not only caused the Pirate Alliance to lose a lot of manpower, but also affected her own side. Big Mom didn't care at all. Anyway, to her, these so-called soldiers were just homets that could be made at random. What's more, she didn't care about human life in the first place. La, it seems I came at the wrong time. Just when the two sides were fighting in full swing, Aokiji's warship suddenly broke into their battle zone. Well, you can continue. I won't disturb you. Aokiji stood on the deck with his arms folded, looking at the stunned people and smiling awkwardly. Well, Marine is here too. It's really interesting. Little bugs. Just accept my fist obediently. Thunder and fire crit. Big Mom was completely stunned and was not willing to give up at all. Without even looking at Aokiji, who had a solemn face, his fists were wrapped with thunder and fire, and his seemingly fat body actually dodged very quickly in front of Yermak and Francis. Boom! The terrifying power of thunder and fire was unleashed on the two of them, and Yermak barely had time to elementalize. No, to be precise, elementalization was useless because the scope of Big Mom's move was too wide. Can't avoid it. Just one blow almost killed both of them. But Francis was not seriously injured due to the rough skin and thick flesh of the ancient Zoan species and the terrifying resilience. Ice Age, Aokiji on the side, quickly judged the form, activated the fruit ability in his hand, and slowly exhaled a breath of cold air from his mouth. A large area of the sea and the pirates on the sea turned into solid ice sculptures. Of course, Aokiji would not be on the side, as he said. Looking at it, the pirates on both sides of the field have been almost exhausted, and the hunting time has arrived. Hey, Marine, this is our war. Do you want to die? Big Mom, who was having a great time, was very unhappy when he saw Aokiji's actions. He stared at the indifferent Aokiji with his selective eyes and kept making weird smiles from his mouth. I'm so sorry, lady. This is my justice. Ice knife. A slender ice blade instantly appeared in Aokiji's hand, and then he threw it viciously at Big Mom's face. Chance. Yermak and Francis looked at each other and left the battlefield in unison. Most of the pirates they brought have been lost here. They really misjudged the strength of Big Mom. The Blood Scythe is currently being beaten by Katakuri, and it is estimated that he will fall soon. Defeated. As for Klaus, he is being besieged by several of Big Mom's children. Although he has the upper hand, it is obviously impossible to escape. They were already thinking about quitting when they saw that Aokiji actually took the initiative to resist the pressure from Big Mom. If they didn't leave, they would probably stay in the waters of Tado Land forever. It looks like our Marines are going to take over the battlefield. Aokiji glanced at Yermak and Francis, who were fleeing, but did not stop them. Iceball saw the pirates are prohibited here. Atlas led a medium-sized marine-style warship to intercept the waters around Tado Land. And with his vast knowledge, he easily found the two people who had escaped. Marine? Commodore. Yermak looked at Atlas with contempt. Although they fled in embarrassment during the war in the New World, they were not something that a small Marine Commodore could manipulate at will. Francis on the side also frowned. He was very annoyed by Marine's deployment. He actually sent a Marine Commodore to participate in a war of this level. Originally, he wanted to find an opportunity to sneak attack Yermak. The appearance of this Marine was simply just causing trouble. But he, Francis, was not the kind of soft-hearted person, and the Marine in front of him could only wish for happiness. Flying finger pistol explosion. Atlas didn't care what the two pirates in front of him were thinking and directly shot Yermak with a blast of flames. Boom! The blasting ray passed through Yermak's body and hit the sea in the distance, causing a huge splash in an instant. Yermak deactivated the elementalization with a gloomy look, and his brows were no longer as relaxed as before. Although he had avoided the blasting flames through elementalization, he could clearly feel the huge power, and at the same time he understood what he was seeing. This Marine is no ordinary thing. It's really interesting, Francis. It looks like we have to work together again. What are you doing? A sick smile appeared on Yermak's face, and he was about to invite Francis to join him in killing the Marine in front of him. But what shocked him was that this guy walked towards Marine without any defense. What surprised him even more was that the Marine didn't stop him at all. It just ignored Francis. Hey. Didn't we say that pirates are prohibited from traveling? Are you FG blind? Didn't you see such a big living person in front of you? Mad. That BD Francis is an undercover agent. Seeing such an abnormal Francis, and then thinking about the role this guy played in promoting this war, Yermak, who gradually calmed down, finally woke up. Chapter 88, Cloudman. Kid, it seems like this is all your Marine's plan? Ha ha ha. Sengoku is truly worthy of the name, the resourceful general. Yermak looked a little annoyed, but at the same time he was helpless, and he kept letting out low laughter. He felt like a mouse being played by a cat, and an ugly smile suddenly appeared on his face. I'm sorry, Mr. Yermak. There's a bounty of 700 million Baileys on the sea. Garbage. You know too much, so I can only ask you to die. Atlas looked at the pirate dressed as a sick gentleman in front of him and said without any emotion in his eyes, You must know that the current bounty is not as high as it was after Luffy went overseas more than 10 years ago. More than 10 years later, it was purely the result of Bailey's depreciation and inflation. Therefore, Yermak's reward of 700 million belly is still very valuable, and his strength should not be underestimated. What a bratty brat. Although Yermak has just seen the tip of the Atlas iceberg, his pride as a great pirate will not allow him to surrender without a fight. Thundercloud descends. Yermak laughed ferociously, and a large number of dark clouds suddenly gathered in the sky, and thunder that flashed from time to time was slowly brewing among them. Suddenly, a thunder beam descended from the sky and hit Atlas' head directly. Boom! The huge amount of thunder power instantly overwhelmed Atlas. However, Yermak did not show a look of surprise on his face. He knew very well that the man in front of him could not die under such an attack. It's so comfortable. I haven't felt this good for a long time. The thunder dissipated, and Atlas stood intact, his body completely wrapped in the rich armament haki, but the clothes on his upper body had been reduced to ashes under the terrifying heat, revealing his armor-like muscles. Atlas twisted his neck slightly, and his strong bones suddenly crackled. What surprised him was that under the baptism of thunder just now, his body actually made some progress, even if it was so small that it could be ignored. It's my turn. Atlas flexed his muscles and activated the explosive force under his feet. The sea surface that was hit suddenly sank, and he arrived in front of Yermak at a terrifying speed almost in the blink of an eye. Iron body arm shatter. The arm suddenly swelled. A terrifying sense of power came to him, and the skin in contact with the air directly ignited fierce burning sparks. Cloud shield armed. Almost at the same moment, a huge cloud wall painted with armed colors erected in front of Yermak. Duong. It's a very strange touch, with a bit of softness and hardness, but not the crispness of gold and iron like the collision of armed colors. It feels like the strong flexibility has almost neutralized a third of Atlas's strength, and the rest, it was carried down by the armed forces. Haha, I'm a cloud man who ate the Logia Renren Fruit. My cloud shield is both the softness of cloud and the hardness of armament color. It is impossible for you to break it, Yermak said with a somewhat proud smile. In his opinion, although the Marine in front of him was a little troublesome, it was just a little troublesome and not an invincible opponent. So he immediately carried forward the fine traditions of the pirate world and excitedly explained his abilities and moves. Yeah, Atlas was non-committal, but he suddenly put more force on his hand, and at the same time activated the explosive power of the Dragon Talisman, and fierce flames were produced on his fist. Boom! It feels good. Atlas looked at Yermak, flying backwards, and let out a long breath. Yermak, who was in the distance, forced himself to stand still, looked at the tattered gentleman's uniform, and couldn't help but feel an unknown fire in his heart. Hey, you completely PD'd off, lousy Marine. As soon as he finished speaking, thick clouds and mist suddenly arose on the sea. The thick clouds were like a white continent, lifting Yermak's body high, and then slowly lifted into the sky. At the same time, a large number of clouds and mist began to try to wrap around Atlas. Sri Lanka. Atlas felt like a pair of huge palms were holding his body, and the grip was getting tighter and tighter as time passed. Boom! The explosive flames burst out, instantly blowing out a huge hole in the clouds that bound Atlas. But under the control of the Yermak fruit ability, it was quickly replenished almost at a speed visible to the naked eye. Seeing this, Atlas stepped on Moonwalk and used Razor to quickly get rid of the entanglement of the clouds and mist. Flying Finger Pistol Explosion Gatling. A fierce look flashed in Atlas's eyes, and his index finger unleashed a large amount of artillery fire, carrying armed explosive bullets and hitting Yermak intensively. Yermak was also unambiguous. His arms were quickly wrapped in a large amount of clouds, the color of his weapons hardened, and his two huge black fists violently collided with the bursting flames. Bang, bang, bang. Continuous explosions sounded, and a white airwave exploded rapidly with Yermak as the center. Atlas took advantage of the momentum and dodged into the air mass. At the same time, the shape of his body changed drastically. The body quickly shrunk to a height of 2 meters. The armed color on his body became darker and darker. Dazzling patterns were outlined on the chest and back, and 2 tear marks appeared on his chest. The corners of his eyes spread to his neck. Life Return Arm Paper Arts Martial Body. Unlike the Valkyrie body, the Paper Arts Armament body can make Atlas's reactions faster and more sensitive. The Valkyrie body brings Atlas the power of a giant, which perfectly fits the power of the Ox Talisman. Of divine power, Frandance Snake. As early as Atlas rushed up, Yermak's sight and color had already captured Atlas' figure, so he took the lead in launching the attack. A large number of giant pythons, composed of clouds and mist, came in, and the snake body was vaguely covered with a layer of armed color, obviously trying to trick Atlas. I really think that Lousy's knowledge and appearance are just decoration. Atlas's eyes narrowed slightly. 2 rich red lights overflowed from his eyes, and the powerful color of knowledge was turned to ultimate. With the blessing of Paper Art's martial body, Atlas avoided all the cloud pythons with almost perfect posture. Since the last battle with Katakuri, although the breadth of his knowledge has not improved, the fineness of his perception has improved a lot. Explosion Tomahawk. Almost instantly, Atlas crossed the clouds and mist, hovering condescendingly over Yermak's head, and then raised his right leg high, his body like a drawn bow, carrying the blasting flames fiercely. Strike hard. Boom. Even though Yermak built a cloud wall in an instant, he was still shot down from the air by this terrifying force. Pong! A dull crash sounded, and Yermak did not fall into the embrace of the sea. This was thanks to the layer of clouds he had created with his fruit ability to restrain Atlas. Chapter 89 Flashy. I won't give you a chance next time. Xingyun. Atlas would not give Yermak the slightest chance to breathe. His body quickly grew in size, and the lines on his face curled up and converged on his forehead. The muscles on his back were clearly defined and eventually formed a grimace, and the steaming heat continued. Emit from the body. The embarrassed Yermak slowly climbed up from the thick clouds. Suddenly, a black object falling at high speed broke into his range of perception before he could take a closer look. Boom! The huge acceleration directly punched a hole in the clouds, and water waves tens of meters high splashed up, hitting Yermak hard on the side. Dodged! But Yermak was not surprised at all. Instead, there was cold sweat on his forehead. Although he was not completely hit by Atlas, his left arm was crippled. Yermak could clearly feel that his left arm had been shattered, and he had completely lost his ability to fight. Isn't this guy a capable person? Yermak was a little surprised. Apparently, Atlas's explosive ability also made him mistakenly think that Atlas was a fruit user. But looking at the current situation, it was obvious that he had misjudged it. At this moment, Atlas, who was lurking at the bottom of the sea, was extremely certain that his attack had definitely caused some damage to Yermak. Bang! A huge water splash bloomed, and Atlas was like a rapidly moving tiger-headed shark, aiming straight at the place where Yermak stood with its armored and hardened head. Cloud Shield Arm. Yermak did not expect that the opponent's attacks would be so fast and violent, one after another, almost leaving him without any chance to breathe. The strong sense of crisis made him open his military-colored cloud shield almost instantly. Boom! Violent collisions exploded around him. This time Yermak was not completely protected. The powerful blasting flames accompanied by the stabbing of his head hit his body unabated. The scattered air waves and storm almost knocked the surrounding clouds into irregular debris, slowly floating on the rolling sea. Yermak stood on top of a larger piece of the wreckage, and at the same time, the ominous premonition in his heart became stronger. After a short confrontation, he discovered that he was no match for the marine in front of him, although he has been consumed by Big Mom. Cloud and Mist Domain. When Atlas stood still, his sight was instantly blocked by the diffuse clouds and fog. It was a bit like Smoker's smoke fruit, but the two were almost different substances. Smoker's smoke fruit was small solid particles, while Yermak's clouds were water vapor and small ice crystals, which means it has an effect similar to refrigeration. Sure enough, just as Atlas was thinking, the surrounding temperature had already begun to drop, but this was far worse than Akiji's frozen fruit. Want to escape? Yermak is not the kind of pirate who will fight to the death if he cannot be beaten. Running away when the situation is bad is the normal life of pirates like him. Cruelty, cunning, and greed, these characteristics that a pirate should have, are perfectly reflected in Yermak. Atlas had already locked onto the opponent's position after seeing it. His leg muscles exerted force, and his figure almost turned into an afterimage, and he quickly attacked Yermak. Yermak naturally noticed Atlas's movements, and his heart tightened. The fruit ability was activated, and a large amount of clouds and mist began to solidify. The armed color moved accordingly, and he threw it in the direction of Atlas. Cloud Shield Arms. Gun. The sharp tip of the gun shone with black luster, and the terrifying sharpness made Atlas's cheek hurt. How many armed colors does this guy have? Atlas smacked his tongue a little, but his advancing figure did not stop at all. Don't forget, Laozi is still a swordsman. Atlas smoothly pulled out the third-generation Kitetsu from his waist, swelled his arms, and slashed forward. Itoryu armed Raikiri. The blood-red slashes wrapped around the black-red armament haki were more powerful than before. This was something Atlas had not yet realized for a long time. With the in-depth training of armament haki, he became more comfortable with the application of armament haki. Now, I can already try to entangle the slash. The powerful cutting ability cleared the obstacles for Atlas almost instantly. Yermak, who noticed the movement behind him, panicked and his hands and feet stiffened for a moment. Almost at the same time, Atlas's pupils trembled, and a strong aura burst out from his body, like a forest king with teeth and claws, rushing straight towards Yermak. This is Overlord Lust. Yermak's expression flashed into a trance, and the back of his head felt like being hit by a huge hammer. A strong sense of dizziness surged up, and his body froze for a moment. Very good. Atlas seized this opportunity and quickly appeared behind Yermak. Before the other party could turn around, the dazzling blade of third-generation Ghost flashed past, and blood splashed everywhere. In a face was the shocked head fell into the sea with a thud. Yermak, the owl leader. Hey, it's so fancy. Atlas sneered, and the tip of the knife slowly lifted Yermak's head out of the water. When the surrounding clouds and fog dissipated, a huge warship in the distance quickly sailed towards Atlas. After all, Yermak's fruit had not yet awakened, although Atlas felt that it was on the verge of awakening, but still does not have the ability to permanently change the environment. Atlas Commodore, mission accomplished. Please return. Soon, the warship led by Aokiji reunited with Atlas, and an adjutant-like Marine walked out of the ship and reported to Atlas. Okay, let's go over there and join my warship first. During the battle, I asked them to move a distance away. Atlas nodded, then glanced around and frowned. Where's Aokiji, Vice Admiral? Why didn't he come back? Atlas will not think that Aokiji died in the hands of Big Mom or escaped. Although Aokiji has not reached his peak, he definitely has the strength of Admiral now. But the world government does not know why it has not held the award ceremony for so long. Let Sengoku officially take over Marine. As an older generation Marine, Sengoku, as long as he is not promoted to Marshal for a day, it is impossible for the three-monster Vice Admiral to officially become an Admiral. This is my speculation, and it is basically in line with common sense because I don't know if they were promoted to Admiral at the same time or if there's a time difference. Please forgive me. Aokiji, Vice Admiral, is behind to buy us time to retreat. He should be here soon. Okay, I understand. Chapter 90. Look, Changwei is calling Laifu New World an unknown sea area. The roar of artillery fire was endless, and the two distinct fleets faced each other here. Gulalala, are you here to cause trouble for Lousy again? Don't you Marine dislike the number of dead soldiers? Garp, Whitebeard's captain's cloak rustled in the sea breeze. Holding Song Yunki's body, he was extremely tall, and his eyes were full of confidence. Ha ha! Newgate, you should worry about yourself first. Maybe your head will be left here today, and then I will have to say sorry to that brat Atlas. Garp rubbed his rough fist as he spoke, his face full of excitement, and an emotion called warlike, rising from his body. Gulalala, let's see if you have that ability, Garp. As soon as he finished speaking, Whitebeard stood upright, raised his left hand high, and bent it at 90 degrees, and a white ball appeared on his fist. Air shock. The entire space was like a mirror, filled with cracks in an instant. Powerful power was transmitted to the sea surface, and the whole world seemed to be shaking. Almost at the same moment, Garp also jumped up high. His weapons moved accordingly, and his fists were covered in an instant. Fistbone meteor. Boom! The moment the ultimate collided, a huge storm was created. What shocked the surrounding Marines and pirates was that the sky split. Is this a duel between top experts? It's so powerful. Haha. As expected of Father Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world is not just a boast. Mr. Garp is really powerful. He is worthy of being a legendary sailor. Marine and the pirates immediately exploded, and this sky-shattering duel gave them an unparalleled visual impact. Gurlalala. Stop the boring temptation here. War is not a game played by pirates and Marines. Garp. Whitebeard raised Song Yunki, pointed the bright tip of the knife at Marine's side. The terrifying conquerors was released, and the war officially started. Not far from the sea area of Tato Land, two Marine-style warships, one large and one small, sailed quickly on the sea. On the deck of the larger warship lay a tall man with a lazy look, a green eye patch covering his eyes, and no parasol, letting the sun shine. On a white suit, Aokiji, Vice Admiral. Shall we go directly to Vice Admiral Garp for support later? On the medium-sized warship next to him, Atlas squatted on the side of the ship and looked at Akiji, who was about to fall asleep. It depends on the situation. By the time we get there, the war will probably be over. Akiji slowly lifted the corner of his eye mask, glanced at Atlas from the corner of his eye, and answered weakly. This operation went quite smoothly. Our battle results should be good. Hee. Alala. It's okay. The most powerful pirate groups in the New World now are only Big Mom, 100 Beasts, and Whitebeard. The 100 Beasts' power is the most intact, but its scope is only limited to Wanakuni. The Whitebeard pirates the group is still the strongest, but as for Big Mom, the losses are quite serious. Just a lot of the children who have not yet grown up have died. Ha ha! How could such a top-notch battle not include Lousy? In the sea area where Marine and the Whitebeard pirates were fighting, with a burst of laughter, a huge blue dragon fell from the sky and instantly intervened in the battle between Garp and Whitebeard. Kaido of the Beasts. Blue dragon form. Garp and Whitebeard were separated to the edge due to Kaido's intervention. The two looked at each other. One punched, and the other raised a knife to chop. Oh, ouch, in an instant. Two wounds that broke through the dragon scales appeared on Kaido's huge blue dragon body. Kaido felt a burst of pain and howled in pain, but the wounds recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Garp and Whitebeard didn't bother to care about Kaido's troublesome stick, and they started fighting with knives and fists. You two guys really excite Lousy. Kaido quickly transformed into a dragon-like form. His body was too big. Although his strength and methods were greatly enhanced, his flexibility was still much worse than that in the dragon-like form. Hey, Kaido is such a troublemaker. He will join in wherever there is excitement. Marco, who was struggling with the Kainu, saw Kaido entering and complained with some contempt. In Marco's opinion, which one of Garp and Whitebeard present could not beat Kaido to pieces? In other words, Kaido is a rough-skinned guy. Boom! Just when Marco was distracted, a giant lava fist struck him hard, and instantly a blood hole appeared on Marco's chest with a burning aura. Do you dare to be distracted while fighting me? Captain of the 1st Division of the Whitebeard Pirates. Marco. Hey. Bista, won't you help me keep an eye on it? Marco looked at the bloody hole on his chest and said somewhat depressedly. At the same time, the flames of regeneration surged rapidly, and the flesh and blood on the chest quickly sprouted, leaving only a shallow mark in just a moment. I'm not as thick-skinned as you. I won't feel comfortable if you get hit like that, Bista replied seriously while waving the knife in his hand. Even though the place where Garp, Whitebeard, and Kaido fought was a little far away from the sea, the airwaves generated by the occasional collision between the three always set off waves of strong winds and tsunamis. And the terrifying sonic booms were almost deafening to the Marines and pirates who were slightly closer. When Atlas and Akiji arrived to support, they saw Chong Wei beating Laifu. Oh no, it was Whitebeard and Garp hammering Kaido. At this time, Whitebeard also understood a little bit. Although Marine has deployed most of its troops here, it is obvious that the real target is not them. And with Kaido disrupting the situation, Whitebeard, who was originally at a slight disadvantage, the pirate group breathed another sigh of relief. There was no way this guy Kaido would spray hot breath everywhere from time to time, which made the pirates and Marines who were still fighting were so worried that they didn't dare to use their full strength in the battle, and they had to keep an eye out for sudden sparks. Frozen Time Capsule. As soon as Akiji arrived, he directly joined the battlefield. The strong cold air spread quickly. The pirates who could have fought back and forth were collapsed under Akiji's pressure. Gulalala, belonged to the Whitebeard pirates, start to retreat. Seeing this, Whitebeard shouted loudly, and at the same time, his left hand formed into a claw shape and tore into the air. The thick cracks spread from the air to the sea. With the retreat of the Whitebeard pirates as the boundary, the sea was divided into two halves. Ha, what a mess, Whitebeard. Garp also stopped when he saw this, knowing that Whitebeard couldn't stop him if he wanted to leave, and Marine's purpose this time was not to completely destroy the Whitebeard pirates. Hey, aren't you going to fight? Lousy hasn't had enough yet. Kaido was a little dissatisfied at this time, but the rushed Akiji and the freed Akainu combined with Garp to beat him up severely, And then he was satisfied and ran away, staggering on the fire cloud with a big bag on his head. Chapter 91. 3 Emperors. In the morning, a few days after the melee ended, flocks of newsbirds were busy flying around the world, and a piece of news that shocked the world spread across the sea. Marine cleared the New World. The Pirate Alliance was completely disintegrated, and new overlords appeared on the sea after the death of the Pirate King. The World Economic News called them the 3 Emperors of the Sea. All nations, Cake Island. Well. 3 Sea Emperors? I want to become the Pirate King. Big Mom was rarely eating. Instead, she was holding a newspaper in her hand. Her expression was a bit strange, and she didn't know whether she was happy or angry. Mom, in addition to the death of several younger brothers and sisters in the family, such as Saint Mark, Tabret, High-Fat, and Moscato, Mondor and Smoji were seriously injured, and a large number of other battle homies were lost. Perispero stood aside and told the statistics carefully. Trash. They're all a bunch of trash. Big Mom is very angry now. She spent many years giving birth to these children one after another. They had great potential, but she did not expect that they would die before they could grow up. Katakuri's face on the side was even more ugly. He was originally in a bad mood when he heard the news of his younger brother and sister's death, but he became even more upset after hearing Big Mom's comments. He clearly saw that Saint Mark was dead. In the aftermath of the battle at Big Mom. Well. What a great gesture. Marine, how about the force damage of Whitebeard and Beast Pirates? According to our intelligence, the forces of the 100 Beasts are the most intact. Only Kaido himself participated in this melee, while the Whitebeard pirates suffered greater damage. Several of his pirate groups who followed him were destroyed, but the force has not been damaged much. Also, Perispero carefully glanced at the change in Big Mom's face and continued, of the Pirate Alliance that invaded the waters of Tato Land. Klaus and Lackham were captured by us, and Yermak was captured by us. Marine was shot dead on the spot, and only Francis escaped alone. Big Mom was furious, and a demon-like aura burst out from her body. Well, I must want this guy's head. Mom, Francis has surrendered to Kaido of the Beasts, and is now one of the 3 major signs of the Beast Pirates' drought. Perispero reminded slowly. Kaido, has this guy forgotten his kindness? Aboard Moby DK, Dad, it seems that Marine's real target is not us at all. It is a scene played by Marine from beginning to end. They divided the battlefield into 2 parts. The main target is actually the Pirate Alliance, which just happens to hit our Whitebeard the pirates, the Beasts, and the Big Mom pirates. Marco drooped his eyelids, leaned on the side of the boat, and said coldly, Gula la la. That Lin guy should be very angry now. After all, the target of the Pirate Alliance is her. Whitebeard laughed loudly. Although he and Big Mom once stayed on a ship together, the relationship between them was not very good. He knew that if Whitebeard was killed by Marine, Big Mom would be happy to bite him. One mouthful. Whitebeard knows very well that Big Mom has long coveted the Fishman Island, which he shelters. But this should be a good thing. Now the situation on the sea has reached the balance that the world government guys want. At least for a while, Marine will not take any big actions. Furthermore, Dad, you are now recognized by the whole world as the Emperor of the Sea. Gulalala. It doesn't matter what the Emperor of the Sea is. The important thing is you. Whitebeard picked up the glass filled with wine, pointed it at his throat, raised his head, and drank. Wanakuni, Island of Ghosts. Brother Kaido, this is the new newspaper that came out today. Morgans from the World Economic News even came over to pay a visit, but you, the boss, drank too much at the time, so you didn't see him. Jin was still dressed in black, with his whole body wrapped tightly. Emperor of the Sea? Ha! But Lousy's ambitions don't stop there. Kaido took the newspaper, glanced at it casually, and then started crying and laughing nervously. By the way, how are the Wanakuni warriors who followed Odin suppressed? Most of them were imprisoned and sent to Rabbit Bowl to excavate sea stone. But Master Yamato's sighed. Yamato? What's going on with that BD son of mine? Speaking of Yamato, Kaido couldn't help but have a headache. As Kaido's son, no, I should say daughter, except for shouting every day that he wants to be the BD Kazuki Odin, and that he wants to expel his father, he can accept other problems. Originally, Yamato couldn't help but admire Odin after watching Odin's death when he was 8 years old. However, since picking up Odin's BD's logbook, his Odinization has become more serious. It would be fine if Yamato was a loser, but this guy awakened Conqueror's Haki at the age of 8, and also accidentally ate a Phantom Beast Fruit some time ago. As a Phantom Beast ability user, he naturally knows about the Phantom Beast. Powerful place. Originally, according to Kaido's idea, he wanted to make his unfilial son serve as Wano Kuni's general and take charge of Wano Kuni for him. But now what this guy thinks about every day is probably to drive him out of Wano Kuni's invader. Master Yamato, she tried to sneak out again while you were away, but was discovered by the Emperor and is now imprisoned in Onigashima prison. What ABD? Let this guy stay in jail and reflect for a while. By the way, replace the sea stone handcuffs on her hands with ones with a higher concentration. Yes, North Blue, Don Quixote family station. Bah. 3 Sea Emperors? The sea is really getting more and more lively. The man wearing a pink feather coat and sunglasses lay on a wicker chair, stretched out his big bronze hand, and shook the sun in the sky, as if he wanted to extinguish the light of the entire world in his hand. You say so, Rosinante, my dear brother, blah blah blah. The man with pink feathers and feathers turned to look at the man with a clown face next to him and asked, his eyebrows full of unruliness and ambition. Chapter 92. Seeing and Hearing. Top-level Sea Circle Calendar, October 1506, Ron Island, the sea area under the jurisdiction of the Whitebeard Pirates. This is an island that is not very big in the New World. A huge white crescent-bearded skull flag hangs high on the tallest building on the island, indicating that this place is protected by Whitebeard and only needs to pay a certain amount of money every year. But it is definitely much less than the gold in the sky. In the tavern, Atlas held a pint of beer in his hand, raised his throat, and let the refreshing beer flow down the river. Atlas was 20 years old this year, and he was a mature man, both physically and mentally. Man, Atlas was the only one in the entire tavern, not because the living conditions on the island were too poor, but because he did not hide it at all. He was wearing a pure white suit and a cloak of justice, and there was a general's heart clearly visible on his brochure. Star, all of these indicate his Marine Rear Admiral status. Yes, long after the war in New World ended, he was promoted to a Rear Admiral. This is the territory of the Whitebeard Pirates. Even though Whitebeard is usually more tolerant of the island's residents, they don't dare to get too close to Marine. Aboard Moby DK, Marco Chiran walked out of the cabin with a helpless look on his face. He looked at Whitebeard with drooping eyes and spread his hands. Dad, that guy came to our territory again. Why don't you let that guy Josie do it this time? Just deal with it. Gulalala. Marco, Josie is no match for him. You are more resistant to beatings, so you should go for a while. As soon as Whitebeard heard this, he knew that it was Marine's brat who threatened to challenge him again, and he couldn't help but laugh. As the Emperor of the Sea, Whitebeard naturally cannot deal with Atlas in person. He can only send the captain of the division. However, Marco was no longer his opponent a year ago, which means that Marco's regenerative flames can force him to driving with that kid at 55. This terrifying speed of progress surprised him. Another guy like Garp. Boss, check out, Mad. Why hasn't that pineapple head come yet? Atlas looked at the wine barrels piled on the table, but there was no hint of drunkenness on his face, and his eyes were extremely clear. He then stood up and shouted to the cowering boss, and then complained with some dissatisfaction. Hey, it's not a good habit to speak ill of people behind their back. You annoying Marine. A voice sounded at the door of the tavern. Atlas turned around and saw a man wearing a purple coat, with the Whitebeard Pirates logo tattooed on his chest, and a pineapple head appearing at the door of the tavern, with an impatient look on his face. Yo, Marco, you're finally here. I thought your Whitebeard Pirates were dying, and you didn't even have the manpower to teach me, a Marine, who had intruded into your territory. Atlas said with a mocking tone, half smiling. Marco looked up to the sky and yawned. Why do you always like to make trouble? I heard that you went to the Big Mom Pirates to provoke Katakuri some time ago, but the Big Mom guy took action in person. I'll chase you to Marine's base. Speaking of this, Atlas immediately became a little embarrassed. That's because Big Mom, that old witch doesn't have martial ethics. She's an emperor of the sea, and she actually came to hunt me down personally. It's so pitiful that Atlas only occasionally went to Tato Land to play in the autumn breeze. He only went there once, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, mainly to have a friendly discussion with Katakuri. Anyway, no one can stop him even if he wants to run, and he can also secretly learn observation hockey's ability to predict the future. Isn't that how Luffy learned it? Who knew that Big Mom's wife was so violent that she actually led Zeus and Prometheus to chase him? Fortunately, his vitality is now as strong as Zyokyang's, which means he is a little more embarrassed, and Big Mom can't do anything to him. Well, who told you that you're going too far? Marco became furious when he saw Atlas still looking aggrieved. Since the last New World reshuffle, this guy has been running to the Whitebeard Pirates and Big Mom Pirates every day. Jumping around on the territory, he was almost blacklisted by the two big pirate groups. But the vitality and self-healing ability of the guy in front of him are almost as good as his, a Phantasmal Beast Species famous for self-healing. If he hadn't seen him moving freely in the sea several times, Marco would really doubt whether this guy was I ate some Zoan Devil Fruit secretly. Let's go. I believe you don't want to affect the residents of the island. Let's just find an uninhabited island and have a fight. Atlas didn't bother to explain and skillfully signaled Marco to move out of the way and walk straight out of the door of the tavern. Stepping out of the tavern door, Atlas stretched a little, and then a red light flashed in his eyes, and a powerful sense of perception spread from him. See and hear. Turn on. This kind of seeing and hearing. Marco's face behind him changed slightly. After the Marines, sightings and colors in front of him quickly covered Ron Island. They spread unabated to the boundless sea. Marco almost didn't see this terrifying sightings and colors. Pass. Found it. A smile appeared on Atlas's lips while stepping on Moonwalk. He walked in a direction with no objects within his field of vision. Does this kind of knowledge really exist? Marco looked at the deserted island in front of him and secretly compared the distance to Ron Island. He suddenly couldn't calm down at all. At least Marco had never seen such a terrifying range of perception. Marco, don't be distracted. If you miss, today may be the last time you breathe fresh air. Atlas looked at Marco's somewhat absent-minded look and couldn't help but remind him that he didn't want to fight an opponent who couldn't calm down. Stop talking nonsense, BD Marine. Marco forcibly calmed down after hearing this. He knew how cold-blooded the guy in front of him was, despite his usual smiling face. If he failed here today, he would either be shot dead on the spot or imprisoned and impelled down. His methods are no less brutal than Akainu's. Crane Claw. As soon as he finished speaking, Marco opened his wings made of blue flames, quickly entered the human-animal form, and used the force of falling from high altitude to quickly kick Atlas. Left. Atlas was very calm and kept locking Marco's figure. Almost at the same moment, he moved his body slightly and actually avoided Marco's kick. Predict future. Marco was startled and forcibly stopped his body from rushing forward due to inertia, then quickly spread his wings and flew high, looking down at Atlas, and did not stop until the distance between the two reached a safe level. Marco will never admit his mistake. As the captain of the Whitebeard Squadron, he has been fighting with the Big Mom Pirates all year round. Naturally, he has dealt with Katakuri many times, so he is very familiar with this kind of observation hockey who can predict the future. He clearly found that before he even started to attack, Atlas had already begun to dodge. Chapter 93, The Function of the Sheep Talisman, King Yinyan. After a moment of stalemate, Marco took action instantly, and the green flames in his hands continued to condense into a large number of phoenix tail feathers. Then the huge number of phoenix tail feathers formed a flaming fist in midair and attacked Atlas on the ground. Fire Fist. Lousy can do it too. Explosive Fist Armed. Atlas's fist quickly wrapped around a cluster of flames. His terrifying explosive ability was suspended, and his armament flowed accordingly. He retreated with his right leg, turned around, twisted his hips, and punched. Boom! When two explosive forces met, The air was like ripples on the water. The strong impact hit Atlas's body like a wave, but Atlas's feet clung to the ground, and his body, the shape, has not moved at all. It's getting more and more scary. As soon as he finished speaking, Marco suddenly leaned down and rushed down, whirling his wings, and hit Atlas directly in the face with a leg whip. Atlas didn't panic, raised his right hand, covered with armor, blocking Marco's attack trajectory in advance, and the two armed armors collided. Clang! This guy, Haki, seems to have strengthened again. Marco felt like a piece of ordinary steel colliding with 100 refined steel, and the strong countershock force made his legs and feet hurt. Seeing that the attack was unsuccessful, Marco waved his wings, distanced himself, rolled in the air, and quickly turned his left foot into a claw shape, using the strong inertia to accelerate towards Atlas's chest. Crane claw. Iron body arm cross hunting, boom. Marco's armor-covered claws collided with Atlas's crossed arms, and there was a slight stalemate for a few seconds before the two of them slid backwards one after another. But Atlas only took a few steps back, while Marco slid back dozens of meters, making the decision clear. Not bad. It seems that your strength has improved recently, Marco. Atlas was a little surprised, and it was right to think about it. Marco is also in a period of rapid growth in strength now. After such a long period of harassment by him, it would be unreasonable if he did not make any progress. Moreover, the peak strength per capita in the pirate world should be in his 50s. Marco is still very young now. Well, I'm not a jobber, either. Marco scratched his head and chuckled. In the past 6 months, Atlas has fought with Marco dozens of times, so he naturally knows his abilities well. Although the regenerative blue flame given to him by his Phoenix Fruit does not have the attached damage like ordinary flames, its main function is to heal. But when used against an enemy, it will also burn the opponent's vitality. It's impossible to heal the opponent anyway, and Marco has the common characteristics of fantasy beasts, with rough skin, thick flesh, long health bar, and the terrifying self-healing ability of regenerating blue flames. Although he is a bit limited in terms of attack methods, he is really good. He's so durable. Therefore, Marco's main fighting method is physical skills, which is a bit like Atlas before the Dragon Talisman. He is a rogue player after several battles. Although both of them looked a little embarrassed, their auras were still intact, and they didn't even show any signs of fatigue. Marco, try this trick of mine. As soon as he finished speaking, Atlas's pupils trembled, and a strong aura burst out of his body. The surrounding vegetation was overwhelmed and began to show signs of cracking. Conqueror's Haki. In the original game, the only one known to be able to use Conqueror's Haki to deal physical damage is the red-haired Shanks, and now Atlas can achieve the same effect with the blessing of the Sheep Talisman. Yes, the Sheep Talisman is a spell that he has only recently lit up. As he expected, the main function of the Sheep Talisman is to strengthen the soul. For him, the most important thing is to use the Sheep Talisman. The conspicuous effect is that the range of sight and sound is wider, and Conqueror's Haki has also been strengthened. After the battle with Katakuri, Atlas was already on the verge of predicting the future, and the Sheep Talisman just helped him open the door. The main performance of the Sheep Talisman in the original work is that it can leave the body, just like in the memory of Atlas's previous life. Being able to leave the body must be a powerful soul, which involves mysterious spiritual power. In the pirate's power system, Conqueror's is the embodiment of will, and seeing, hearing, and color is an extension of the spirit, which is what is commonly called the sixth sense. However, neither spirit nor will can be separated from the basic soul. This is nonsense from me. Just treat it as my second guess. Marco's brain was struck by lightning. If the previous Conquerors of Atlas was a wooden hammer to him, this time it was an iron hammer. But Marco is also the captain of the White Beard Pirates after all, so he was just stunned for a moment and immediately woke up. However, just that moment of loss of concentration was the biggest flaw for Atlas. Explosive fist, armed shatter. The fist, which was so fast that it almost turned into an afterimage, hit Marco's body hard. Burnt black fist marks appeared quickly, and the terrifying impact directly sent Marco flying higher into the sky. The intense pain made Marco's spirit tense instantly, and the vigorous regenerative blue flames covered his body. The previous scorching wounds healed instantly, and at the same time, his whole body transformed into a beast, transforming into a phantom beast species of phoenix. Phew! A piercing cry came from the beak of Markoman's form, and the regenerated blue flames on his body burned even more intensely. Poenixel. After recovering from his injuries, Marco transformed into a human animal form again, and a shock wave emitting strong energy hit Atlas. The whole process went smoothly without giving Atlas a chance to react. Armed and deployed, Atlas did not give in, and the blood-red armed color collided with Marco's phoenix eel in the form of a shock wave. Boom! I don't know if this is the unique skill of Marco's Phoenix Fruit. After most of this shock wave was dispersed by Atlas's armed color, the remaining shock wave still hit Atlas. Return of life, arms, and martial god body. Atlas's body expanded rapidly, and the 5-meter-tall warrior god's body rushed forward. With his powerful physique, he forced his face into the Phoenix seal. The powerful kinetic energy allowed him to still maintain high speed and hit Marco. Bang, bang, bang. Fist to fist, palm to palm. The two of them were fighting each other without any defense. Atlas's high-quality armor covering his whole body gave him the capital to resist directly, while Marco's body was constantly burning with regenerative blue flames to restore the damage on his body. Although it has the super endurance of the Phantom Beast species, it still pales in comparison to the bug-like horse charm of Atlas. Marco, if you only have this little ability, you will stay here today. After the two separated, Atlas slowly pulled out the third-generation Kitetsu from his waist. Chapter 94, Thousands of Kills in a Flash. Atlas, in the form of a warrior god, is nearly 5 meters tall, and his palms are extremely thick. The seemingly petite third-generation ghost is like a child's toy in his hands, creating a strong visual impact that makes people feel uncomfortable. Someone to laugh. However, Marco, who was confronting him, couldn't laugh at all. In his perception, Atlas's fierceness almost overflowed, causing his face to feel a little painful. The secret of Ichido Ryu. One snap of the finger contains 20 moments. One moment contains 20 thoughts. One thought contains 90 moments. One moment contains 9 million births and deaths. This trick, a strong sense of threat, ran through every hair of Marco's body, and he quickly fluttered his wings and retreated out of biological instinct. 1,000 cuts in an instant. The third-generation Kitetsu in Atlas's hand seemed to transcend the concepts of time and space, slashing through Marco's body with ultimate speed. Clang! Put the knife away and sheath it. Marco was a little at a loss. He didn't have any injuries on his body, but his intuition told him that it was not that simple. Didn't you hear? The cry of flesh and blood. The words just fell. Countless knife marks appeared on Marco's originally intact body, and a large amount of blood spurted out. His whole body was like a ruthless blood-spewing machine. Boom! Marco's body was shaken, and vigorous regenerative blue flames emerged from his body. But more and more knife marks appeared. Sizzle. More and more green inflammation emerges from a wound, and the flesh and blood continue to collapse and then repair instantly. Marco patted his chest with lingering fear. What a terrifying swordsmanship. I almost thought I was going to die here with that move just now. There were no stab wounds on his whole body, and not even a scar was left. There was just a little cold sweat on his forehead. He was really a little scared. Although his regenerative green inflammation could quickly heal the reborn flesh and blood, once attacked, if he exceeds his recovery limit, he will die. Stop lying. You are the legendary Phoenix, a species of phantom beast even rarer than Logia. Atlas curled his lips, somewhat disdainful of Marco's acting skills. Hey, why don't we stop here? There's nothing you can do to me if we keep fighting like this. That's not necessarily true. You say so, third-generation Kitetsu, Atlas said, gently patting the third-generation Kitetsu on his waist. The move just now was developed by him combined with the rabbit charm. His swordsmanship is pure and ultimate speed, which makes people feel that time and space are chaotic and there is no way to avoid it. You can still use that trick. Marco was a little shocked, and at the same time his hair stood on end, and a strong sense of crisis enveloped his whole body. Are you kidding me? Razor explosion. While Marco was dazed, Atlas stepped forward and punched Marco hard in the face. Puff! Marco's face was swollen after being punched by Atlas. A few teeth fell out, and a mouthful of old blood spurted out. However, a large amount of green inflammation quickly clung to him, and all injuries recovered almost instantly. Suddenly, Atlas, who was about to take the next step, was stunned. A humanoid creature with strong vitality broke into his sight. It seemed to be the support of the White-Beard pirates. Let me let you go today. You won't have such good luck next time, Marco. Atlas turned around and left without hesitation. Marco didn't stop him when he saw this. Judging from Atlas's face, he guessed that his father had probably sent someone to help him. But even if another person came, he wouldn't be able to keep this guy. This guy could be the emperor from a sea, a man who escapes safely in his hands. Then, under Marco's curious and shocked gaze, Atlas ran away. That's right, running. With his current physique and the speed of the rabbit charm, there is absolutely no problem in running freely on the sea. It took a long time until Atlas' figure disappeared on the sea level, and a tall, dark-skinned man appeared in Marco's field of vision driving a boat. The man has two curved black beards, a dark blue top hat, a slip blue shirt, revealing a large amount of chest hair, a sword scabbard on each side of his waist, and a black cloak on his back. Captain of the 5th Division of the White-Beard Pirates. Full Bista. Hey, Marco, why are you in such a mess? Ha 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 ha. Bista saw the Madara bloodline on Marco from a distance, but in his perception, Marco's life the atmosphere is still very strong. So feel free to laugh loudly. The atmosphere of the White-Beard Pirates has always been like this. Forget it. That BD Marine is getting stronger and stronger. By the way, why are you here? Marco took a look at his clothes. Although all the wounds had disappeared, the large amount of bloodline could not be cleaned, but some of it was evaporated by the burning of the green flames. Well, Daddy was a little worried after seeing you been gone for so long, so he asked me to come out and take a look at the situation. Vista couldn't help but echo what Daddy told him before leaving. That arrogant Marine is even more talented than Garp when he was young. Vista, go and see. I'm afraid something will happen to that stupid boy Marco. Marco scratched his head and said with some embarrassment, Fortunately, you came in time to make that guy from Atlas worry. Otherwise, I might have accidentally ended up here today. No. I understand how disgusting your ability is. How can this guy push you to this point? Vista was a little surprised. Marco's fruit ability is more powerful than ordinary Phantom Beasts. Every one of them, in addition to Zoan's general abilities of thick health, high defense, and strong recovery. The Phantom Beast also has a special ability. For example, Sengoku's Big Buddha form is the Big Buddha Shockwave. Kaido's Fish Fruit and Blue Dragon form give him the ability to control thunder and flames, and Marco's Phoenix has regenerative blue flames, which gives him the power to control as long as his attack power does not exceed his ability to instantly recover as long as he can withstand the upper limit. There's nothing I can do about it. That guy's physique and self-healing ability are even worse than a monster. I don't even know where his limits are, and Marco paused, recalling Atlas's last terrifying sword move, and couldn't help but shudder, and continued. Moreover, that guy's sword skills were simply terrifying. At that time, I felt that there was no way to avoid it. I simply couldn't avoid it. I can't see clearly when he draws his sword. As soon as he heard about swordsmanship, Vista licked his chapped lips, showed an interested look on his face, and murmured to himself, a great swordsman. Chapter 95 Headquarters recall Sea Circle Calendar 1507. Marine G, 5 Base, Staff Office. The entire office was empty, with no extra decorations and no gathering of bigwigs as expected. Behind the desk is Vice Admiral Crane, the Naval Headquarters Staff Officer, a legend with a gleam of wisdom in his eyes. Marine is looking up and down at Atlas, sitting in the reception chair. Crane Vice Admiral is extremely satisfied with Atlas. She is an old Marine. She has basically dedicated her life to the just cause of Marine. From a slim girl to a white-haired woman, Now she sees Marine succeeding the three monsters' vice. After Admiral, there was another outstanding young man who could become Marine's savior. She felt happy and relieved. Crane Vice Admiral, do you have any tasks for me when you come to me? Atlas had accepted a mission and was about to set off, but he was called here by Guillaume on the way to the port. He is still confused to this day. Don't worry, Atlas. What do you think of the current situation in New World? Crane Vice Admiral did not directly answer Atlas's question, but instead asked a lofty question about the current world situation, which made Atlas a bit at a loss. After pondering for a while, Atlas said slowly but surely, now the New World pirates have the so-called Emperor of the Sea. The other pirates who come to the New World will either join these three pirate groups, or they will be destroyed at the hands of these three pirate groups, or Marine. Since the last time New World, after the reshuffle of the world, we Marine took over the original sphere of influence of the Pirate Alliance, and also attacked the Whitebeard pirates and the Big Mom pirates, and we became the biggest winner. However, the disadvantages of this situation are also very big. First of all, these pirates will be forced to join the three emperors, which will greatly increase their strength. There is nothing embarrassing for the pirates to join if they can't defeat them. Secondly, world government. Atlas brought up an earth-shattering topic, but Crane Vice Admiral's expression did not change at all, and he just motioned for Atlas to continue. Now, the power of Marine has grown unprecedentedly. Since the first half of the Grand Line is where the headquarters is, it has always had the strongest control. Only New World has been occupied by pirates. Now Marine has officially settled in New World. The world government will definitely be afraid of us. Strictly speaking, Atlas's remarks have separated Marine from world government. If the five elders heard this, they would definitely be suspicious of Atlas. Marine is a violent organ of world government that controls the world. It is absolutely impossible for Marine to break away from the world government. So, now the five elders have been looking for Shichibukai candidates. From the establishment of the Shichibukai system to now, the only Shichibukai has been impelled down by you, so they are now looking for a new balance. Crane Vice Admiral added slowly. Any Marine with a righteous mind would not like to let the world government run wild on his head, especially the Celestial Dragons, a group of idiots. Garp has cursed the Celestial Dragons in public more than once, and they are a bunch of rubbish. However, Marine's most basic source of military expenditure is controlled by world government. Without world government, Marine will not exist for long at all. Well, the conflict with the world government will be left to Sengoku and the others to deal with. I asked you to come here, mainly, because of your transfer order from the headquarters. Crane Vice Admiral promptly stopped the topic, and the two of them kept silent in a tacit understanding. You also know that the current situation in New World has generally stabilized. The three pirate groups have suffered varying degrees of damage. There will definitely not be any large-scale war in a short period of time, so the headquarters plans to transfer some of its troops back to naval headquarters. And Crane Vice Admiral looked at Atlas, who was sitting upright, with a smile on his face. Your achievements are almost complete, and you can just go back to confer Vice Admiral honors with Cake, Guillaume, and the others. Vice Admiral, Atlas probably had a hunch in his heart. After all, he had already achieved enough credit. In other words, his age and qualifications were a little different, so he was not directly promoted from Commodore to Vice Admiral a year ago. In addition, in the past year, he was fighting pirates, and the achievements he accumulated were enough to erase the shortcomings in his qualifications. The warship has been prepared for you. Go back and prepare, and then return directly to the headquarters. Hey, isn't it so unlucky to encounter such horrible weather? On the warship, Kaji, who is currently courting Guillaume, was dumbfounded by the huge storm in front of him. Although he had long been psychologically immune to the strange weather in New World, he finally managed to be alone with the goddess in his heart, but was interrupted by the damn weather. Helmsman, prepare. The navigator changes course to avoid the storm. If he is caught in it, the entire warship will almost be doomed. Seeing this, Guillaume quickly issued an order so that he could escape from Cake's annoying harassment. Report to Guillaume Rear Admiral. The storm is too close to us, and we have no time to escape. We can only minimize the damage to the warship and ensure that we reach Marineford safely. As soon as he finished speaking, a navigator hurriedly ran out of the cabin and loudly reported the current situation. Leave it to me. The warship must not be damaged, otherwise Sengoku Admiral will start to be verbose again. Atlas, who was leaning against the side of the ship with his eyes closed and concentrating, saw this and had no choice but to speak. You go ahead and control the direction of the warship. Just try your best to turn the rudder. Yes. Atlas Rear Admiral. The navigator originally saluted and was ordered to run towards the cabin. Seeing the navigator's back disappear from sight, Atlas turned his back to everyone and jumped off the warship. Hey, Brother Kanos, what are you going to do? Guion was a little puzzled. She couldn't think of any connection between the method Atlas said and him jumping off the warship. Just watch. Guion Rear Admiral. Atlas didn't explain much. The muscles on his body expanded rapidly, and he instantly transformed into an 8-meter-tall giant. This was the height limit he could reach in his life-returning state. This was combined with the power of the Ox Talisman. This is a state of pure power output. Impact explosion. Atlas put his hands on the warship, and flames exploded under his feet. The powerful explosive power and terrifying power were released on the warship. So, with everyone stunned, this marine-style warship was pushed by Atlas with his bare hands and sailed quickly on the sea. Chapter 96 Marine Vice Admiral. Is this a joke? Is this the power of the Atlas Rear Admiral? The power to push a warship with bare hands. Hey. This is on the sea with no stress points. It's more terrifying than pushing a warship, isn't it? Although our warships are only medium-sized warships, this kind of expressiveness is too exaggerated. Soon, the warship was driven away from the center of the storm by Atlas. A group of Marines successfully escaped the fate of the ship being destroyed, and people were killed, but they were still shocked by Atlas's behavior just now. Okay, don't stand here and watch. Go do what you have to do. Jiaji spoke and dismissed the people watching the discussion. Looking at Atlas, who looked relaxed in front of him, he squeezed out a smile on his ugly face, stretched out his fist, and hit Atlas on the chest, and said with a smile, "That's awesome. Brother Kanos, I can't keep up with your current strength. You are truly the monster among monsters that Teacher Zephyr calls you. Brother Jiaji, you don't have to be modest. I just have a little more fancy tricks." Atlas's move was not comparable to Whitebeard's single-handed stoppage of the Moby DK in the Summit War more than 10 years later. The Moby DK was much larger than this standard warship, and that it was even more shocking to stand still and block the rapidly advancing Moby DK. It is worth mentioning that Charlotte Irving, who had the heat fruit that Atlas killed before, did not know if she had watched the live broadcast of Summit War. She once tried to stop the ship with one hand, but she failed to show off and was directly killed. Crushover. Okay, you two guys, stop being modest to each other here, pay more attention to the safety of the warship, and hope to reach Marineford soon. It's been such a long absence, and I'm finally back in Marineford. Looking at the tall and majestic building in front of him, the white waves lapped tirelessly at the crescent-shaped harbor, and recalling his experience in the New World, Atlas suddenly felt that things were different. And now he believed compared to when he first went to New World, both physically and hockey had undoubtedly grown tremendously. Soon, when the warship docked firmly at the port, the Marine on duty came up to meet him. Atlas saw that he was an old acquaintance. Guion Rear Admiral. Cake Rear Admiral. Atlas Rear Admiral. Did the headquarters recall you from the New World? Hates was actually a little embarrassed at first. He was the one who personally took Atlas to visit the recruitment camp. But after so many years, he is still a colonel in the headquarters, and Atlas is already a rear admiral in the headquarters. Maybe when did you get promoted to vice admiral? Although there's only one rank difference between rear admiral and colonel, let alone the rank of officer. There is a huge difference between a general level officer and a school level officer. The general level basically means that you can be regarded as a senior officer of Marine, even if he is just a rear admiral, and the merits required to be promoted to general rank at the school level are unimaginable. Colonel Hayes, long time no see. How are you lately? Atlas naturally remembered heights, so he said hello politely. It's okay. Okay, you guys are going back to Marineford to receive awards this time, right? That should be the case. The situation in New World is quite stable now. so they called us back first. I'm so envious. Then Atlas, you will soon become the youngest vice admiral in marine history. Hayes did not hide his envy at all, but he did not have any jealousy. He had already passed it, that kind of pretentious grade, realizing that there are differences between people. Stop talking. Let's go report to Sengoku Admiral first. I'll meet you for a drink when I have time. Atlas stopped greetings, raised his hand to Hay Eyes, and followed Gion and Cake to Sengoku's office. Dong 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 dong. Please come in. The three of them filed in after hearing the sound, and Atlas subconsciously looked around. It still has the original layout. In fact, Atlas has only been to Sengoku's office a few times. What impressed him most was the justice that rules the world, hanging high on the ceiling, and the goat that kept chewing documents. I'm finally back. The situation in New World is pretty stable, right? Sengoku still has the same image of frog eyes and whip mustache, and he looks a bit glorious. After all, this New World war was carefully planned by him, which also increased his prestige among Marine. I believe 5 elders, he won't be stuck in his position as Marshal for too long. Reporting to Sengoku Admiral, Vice Admiral Garp is in charge of New World. There won't be any big problems. Our Marine has completely digested the occupied territory, and the construction of major Marine bases has been basically completed. The one who spoke was Gion. Among the 3 of them, Gion was the older one, right? You said it's a bonus. Forget it. After all, Gion is more eye-catching. Very good. You will stay at Naval Headquarters during this period. A medal ceremony will be held for you in a few days. Xiao will be back soon. By then, Marine will transfer personnel to station in New World. As for your transfer order, it will come down in a few days. Sengoku briefly explained Marine's recent actions and the position changes of the 3 of them. Although they had been mentally prepared for a long time, the 3 of them were still a little excited when they heard Sengoku's personal confirmation. Currently, there's only one admiral in Marine, Sengoku, and Kong Kong has long since stopped caring about Marine-specific affairs. So the 3 of them can be said to be inferior to one. Of course, although the 3 of Akainu and the others are both Vice Admirals, their codenames are Vice Admiral, Ghost Spider, and Flying Squirrel should not be codenames, and they do not have their names. More precisely, they are Admiral candidates, although Admiral candidates are not included in Marine's military rank system, but their status is still higher than that of ordinary Vice Admirals. Atlas will stay here for a moment. You 2 can go back first. Sengoku casually put the document he had just read into the goat's mouth, and then said to Cake and Gion. After hearing this, the 2 turned around and left without any hesitation. Click. Watching the 2 disappear behind the closed office door, they turned to stare directly at Atlas in front of the desk. Sengoku Admiral, if you have any questions, just tell me. Atlas couldn't help but ask. He really couldn't stand Sengoku's weird eyes, which made him look like a scumbag who always gave up. Cough, cough. The main reason for keeping you here is to discuss with you where you will be stationed in the future. Gion should be on Xiao's ship, and he will be stationed at the headquarters. As for you, Chapter 97 Fisher Tiger, see Circle Calendar 1507, top of red line, Holy Land, Mariehua. This is the seat of the 5 elders, the world's most powerful people, and the world government. Here lives the most noble group of people in the world. They own the world and also have the privilege of enslaving the world. And these so-called descendants of the 20 kings, the so-called the world's nobility, are just a bunch of rubbish and idiots. Mariehua is a holy place that is pursued by everyone. Everywhere you look, there are extremely luxurious and splendid palaces. The waiters coming and going are all handsome men and beautiful women, as if it is like a dream on earth. But under the gorgeous palace with its bright appearance, there are piles of bones and countless filth, and there are too many crimes to describe. Night falls and the lanterns are turned on. The row upon row of palaces became increasingly mysterious and beautiful. Groups of slaves were constantly passing through the dark alleys, followed by guards waving whips as if to drive them away. The slaves were roughly pushed around like cattle and sheep. With the push, the slave who fell behind a little was slapped in front of him, and he had to push himself to get up even if he was bruised. The blood all over his body flowed down with the scars, and his numb and dull eyes seemed to have lost the sense of pain. As for fate, hey, the nobles of the world would not waste medicine just because of a slave. In this holy land that sits high in the clouds, slaves are always the cheapest items. Yes, they are items in the eyes of celestial dragons. They are not the same species as the people in this world. They are gods. He is a descendant of the creator god who can enslave all things. Slaves were driven into dark dungeons one by one, huddled together, and their dinner was just a little scraps. Compared with the high-intensity labor, they could only barely eat enough to maintain the most basic life activities, but they were not picky. Qualifications. As for praying for the coming of the Savior, maybe I still had this kind of fantasy a few years before I joined. At the same time, in a dark dungeon, there were no crowded slaves. There were only 3 girls sitting together. In the middle was a steam bun that looked a bit stiff. The flies that came over from time to time showed that it was not delicious food. However, the stomachs of these 3 girls all growled in unison, and their constant swallowing showed their desire for this not-so-good-looking steamed bun. "Sister, you better eat. We're not very hungry yet." This is a group of 3 sisters. It seems that the younger sister forcibly stopped swallowing and looked at the elder sister among the 3. Following the sister's line of sight, a girl with long black hair came into view. Even the gray stains on her face could not stop her delicacy and delicacy. Her whole body exuded invisible and irresistible temptation. After hearing her sister's rejection, she frowned unhappily, her red lips parted slightly, and a sweet sound like the call of an oriole came out. "Marigold? What nonsense are you talking about?" I've been full for a long time." Gulu, as soon as he finished speaking, 3 dull sounds of gastrointestinal peristalsis echoed. The 3 of them looked at each other awkwardly and then broke into tears. "How about the 3 of us share it together?" Boom, boom, boom. The weather today is extremely gloomy, with dark clouds covering the sky and darkness covering the sea. The occasional thunderstorms bring a glimmer of light, seeming to break the silent darkness. Suddenly, on the towering red line, a red, web hand grasped the edge of the continent. Boom! There was another thunderous sound, and a moment of white light shone on the owner of the fish flippers. This was a snapper fishman. "Marine Ford, Admiral Office. The headquarters has decided to let you garrison Sabaody Archipelago. Generally speaking, Sabaody is garrisoned by a Marine Rear Admiral." Atlas was a little confused when he heard this, and looked directly at Sengoku, as if trying to get the answer from his facial expression. Sengoku didn't show off, and explained his intention straightforwardly. The Sabaody Archipelago can be said to be the only way for pirates to enter the New World. All you have to do is to stop most of the pirates at the gate of the New World, and let the Whitebeard pirates, there is no new blood flowing into the group. The Big Mom pirates and the Beast pirates. Now the 3 major pirate groups in the New World have been suppressed by our Marine. But if a steady stream of pirates comes in, most of the arrangements we made before will be basically ruined, especially those so-called supernovas among the pirates. After hearing this, Atlas couldn't help but admire Sengoku's resourcefulness. He was worthy of being called the resourceful general among Marines. This move can be called a desperate strategy, like the 3 overlord pirate groups in New World, not to mention that they often have to fight with Marine, and they're also constantly at odds with each other. Without the supplement of fresh blood, such a big pirate group, it is estimated that only 1 bear commander will be left in the regiment at the end. Like Whitebeard and Kaido, they are very happy to accept new pirate groups to join them. Even Big Mom, who seems to be the most cruel, is the same, but each has his own way. For example, Whitebeard likes to win the opponent's heart, whether or not he joins in, mainly relying on his strong personal charm. Big Mom is just 2 words. Marriage. As long as she likes her, she can marry her incompetent daughter to the other party. What a cold-blooded and ruthless tyrant believes in most is the bond of blood. It is no wonder that when his daughters get married, their hearts will be completely focused on their husbands, even if they betray the mother they are most afraid of. Kaido is relatively simple. Just swing the stick, and if you still don't accept it, dig in. If you're still not convinced, keep digging until you are convinced. Most people will eventually choose to join the Beast Pirates. That is to say, Moria cannot fall into the arms of Kaido because of his partnership. Moria. Atlas suddenly thought, this guy should be escaping from Wanakuni's soon. By the way, he dug Wanakuni's ancestral grave, and there should be many famous swords. The third-generation Kitetsu in Atlas's hand has long been a bit difficult to use, and the black sword and Kushui are very suitable for him. Brew. Just when Sengoku pinched his throat and was about to start his long speech, the phone on his desk suddenly rang. Moshi, this is Sengoku. Sengoku picked up the phone on the table, his voice as calm as ever. I am Saint Nazarov. 5 elders. A word suddenly flashed in Atlas's mind. He claimed to be holy, and he could directly find Sengoku. He was undoubtedly the highest authority in the world government. The 5 elders. Excuse me, what's the matter? Sengoku unconsciously sat up straighter. Mariewa was attacked, Chapter 98 Prelude, tick-tock tick in the gloomy and damp dungeon. There is a darkness so deep that it seems to be able to swallow everything. Stella. A young man who looked to be in his 20s was huddled in the corner of a dark dungeon, mumbling to himself. His eyes were dull, his face was pale, his eye sockets were sunken, and his body was in tatters. His skinny body was like a candle in the wind, falling down when blown. Only one head of gray-green hair is more conspicuous. It was dinner time now, and some rotten leaf cabbage and fly-infested steam buns were placed haphazardly in the center of the dungeon. However, the boy ignored the hunger in his stomach and just chanted the name over and over again. Occasionally, a few tears flowed from his red eyes. Hey, don't you want to eat? The slave in the same cell grabbed the food on the ground and stuffed it into his mouth while looking at the young man in the corner and asked. Newcomer. A hoarse male voice came from the darkness, and a tall man walked out following the voice. Through the faint moonlight coming from the cracks in the wall, one could vaguely identify a man who was nearly 40 years old. His eyes were calm, and he did not look like an ordinary slave, of sluggishness and despair. Oh, my name is Corey. I was captured not long ago. Corey scratched his head in embarrassment and reluctantly handed over the food in his hand. Are you hungry? I can give you these. Hey, I can't eat these garbage things, so I'll give them to you. The middle-aged man did not accept it, but sneered disdainfully. What's wrong with him? He's so thin. Why doesn't he eat anything? Corey did not immediately deal with the food in his hand. Instead, he pointed at the young man with gray-green hair in the corner and asked doubtfully, Don't worry about this guy. The middle-aged man glanced at the gray-green young man who was still mumbling to himself, with a mocking arc at the corner of his mouth. This guy's name is Tetsolo. It seems like 5 years ago. Oh no, who came here 6 years ago? When he first came here, he clamored all day long that he wanted to find a woman named Stella. Hey, guess what happened in the end? The middle-aged strong man asked Corey in a wicked way. I don't know, that woman must be dead. Otherwise he wouldn't be like this. Corey guessed with some uncertainty. Bingo. That's right. The woman named Stella was bitten to death by a wild beast in the Celestial Dragon's arena 5 years ago. Since then, this guy has become like this crazy person. It seemed that a sad memory was brought up once. The originally dull eyes of Tetsolo, who was curled up in the corner, fluctuated slightly, revealing a touch of paranoia and madness in his eyes. Moreover, I am a slave in the arena, and I happened to see this scene. Lousy saw this guy from being energetic at the beginning to being numb and sluggish now mad. As he said this, the middle-aged man cursed angrily, whether he was scolding Tesoro for his stupidity or the Celestial Dragon's cruelty. After hearing about Tetsolo's experience, Corey felt pity and wanted to go over to comfort him. However, after looking at Tetsolo, who was exuding a smell of no strangers, and his stomach that was constantly urging, he hesitated for a moment. After hesitating, he sat down cross-legged, picked up the food on the floor, and continued fighting. Kid, hurry up and go to bed after eating. There will be heavy labor waiting for you tomorrow morning. Unlike Lousy, hey, what are you doing in the arena? Corey was a little curious when he heard this. The middle-aged man had mentioned that he was a slave in the arena before. What can we do in the arena? Of course we can kill each other for the fun of those BD celestial dragons. After finishing speaking, the middle-aged man found a haystack and lay down. The arena sounded very exciting, and it felt like a dream place for all men, but Mariewa's arena was only for those boring celestials. Dragons just adds a little bit of fun to the bloody slaughterhouse. The middle-aged man not only has to face different slaves as opponents every day, but sometimes one of the celestial dragons may be interested in a human-animal war. It can be said that he walks on the edge of death every day. He does not have the time or energy to be like Tizo. Luo felt so sorry for himself, even though his son and even his wife died at the hands of the celestial dragons. There's hope only when you are alive. After a while, a man's snoring came from the dungeon, and Corey quickly ended his fight with the food, looking at the dungeon fence with a somewhat hollow look in his eyes. Free? Corey was a little distracted. He was still young, and he didn't have an unforgettable hatred for the celestial dragons. His slave life was not very long, only a few days, and he didn't have much desire for the freedom that others said. Perhaps it would be nice to spend your life here like this. Corey thought with some self-deprecation that anyway, for him who had no friends, it would be the same wherever he went. Mariewa could still give him a bite to eat, and maybe he could also meet the legendary world nobles, celestial dragons. Corey's hometown is in the West Blue, a sea area where gang culture is prevalent. He was caught on a slave ship and sold here. Like most ordinary people in the pirate world, he has never seen a real celestial. Dragons, I only have a vague understanding of them from other people's mouths. Some people hate them, some people yearn for them, and some people are dismissive of them. Suddenly, just when Corey was in a daze, a flash of fire forced his way into his sight that was originally swallowed up by darkness, and the fire spread faster and faster, as if it was about to break the night and become the horn before dawn. Corey suddenly woke up, jumped up from the ground, and shouted loudly, "It's burning! Has Mariewa been invaded?" Corey was a little unbelievable. Among the people of the world, Mariewa was the residence of the descendants of the god of creation. How could anyone invade this so-called holy land? The middle-aged man who had just fallen asleep was awakened by Corey's call. He subconsciously looked at his surroundings, and his attention was quickly attracted by the fire in the distance. "Can go out." A trace of resentment flashed in the middle-aged man's eyes, and he clenched his stretched palms tightly, with large veins protruding on his arms. His eyes were a little red, and his body was shaking uncontrollably, as if he had made some important decision. The middle-aged man let out a long sigh, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his body, but his eyes looked towards the thick wall, as if through the obstruction, he looked at a place in Mariewa. The palace, that is, the residence of the celestial dragons. Tetsolo in the corner also made some movement. He moved his limbs a little stiffly, and there seemed to be a touch of life in his eyes, as if a person had faith or obsession. Chapter 99 Boa Hancock Red Line. Holy Land, Mariewa. Fires raging everywhere and shouts of vent have now become the main theme of this city that never sleeps. Among the swaying flames, a tall red fishman led a group of liberated slaves and roughly opened the cells. More and more slaves joined the mighty team. Corey and the middle-aged, burly man were naturally among them, and even Tetsolo, who just looked sad, was also among the crowd. "Hey, uncle, why are you going?" Corey, who looked nervous, stretched out his hand and grabbed the middle-aged man next to him. Not because he was afraid, but this guy actually walked in the opposite direction of the team. "What are you going for?" "Of course, to take revenge." The middle-aged man almost said this through gritted teeth, and his eyes no longer had the original calmness and composure. The madness revealed made Corey couldn't help but take a step back, and the palm that originally grabbed him couldn't help but consciously relaxed. "Penny, Turner, I can finally avenge you." Ooh. The middle-aged man stumbled towards the residence of celestial dragons with a cry in his voice. Corey looked at his leaving back with a complicated expression. He couldn't empathize with him, but he knew it must be painful. Tiger naturally noticed the movement on Corey's side, but he did not do anything to stop it. Everyone has their own choice, and he is not a reckless man. He rescued these people and gave him a choice. Opportunity is the limit of what he can do. "You losers," hurry up and get my slaves back." This young celestial dragon's saint of the world of Rhodes was a little angry at this time and kept sucking the slugs that came out of his nose. He was originally excited to choose a few male slaves to serve him, but what he got was that his slaves were actually the man ran away. Although he killed several guards with guns, he was still a little upset. Rhodes World Saint, CP0 has already taken action to arrest the escaped slaves. The 5 elders have issued an order prohibiting you from stepping out of the palace gate. They're all lowly slaves outside. I'm afraid they may accidentally injure you. The trembling waiter on the side couldn't help but remind him that even if he was frightened by the shooting just now, if something happened to Rhodes World Saint, he would die more miserably, so he would stop Rhodes World Saint from stepping out no matter what. Palace gate. I am a celestial dragon's. Even those slaves dare to touch me. At this time, the young World Saint Rhodes has obviously not been beaten yet and is very confident in his identity as a celestial dragon's. Moreover, how could he change his sleeping plan that he had already decided on tonight? He is the supreme celestial dragon's. This made the waiter on the side miserable. Then he had an idea and put a flattering smile on his face. Holy World Saint Rhodes, there's so many slaves outside. The air is a bit unclean, and they are not dressed up. Well, how do I qualify to meet you, a world noble? This Rhodes World Saint was a little hesitant and suddenly retreated in his heart. He had always been proud of his identity as celestial dragons, so he naturally believed that those slaves were not qualified to see him. Well, I won't go out. Then you must bring back my slaves. Yes, the noble saint of the world, Rhodes. Mero Mello. Corey, who had accidentally escaped from the team, was suddenly startled. A guard with a gun next to him was hiding in the darkness and turned into a human-shaped stone statue. It was Corey who was aiming his gun at him. Corey suddenly broke into a cold sweat after seeing the situation clearly. If he had been shot just now, even if he was lucky enough not to die on the spot, it would probably be impossible to escape from Mariehua. Following the voice just now, I turned around and saw a very beautiful girl with a slightly wider forehead, smooth and flat eyes, slender and delicate eye corners, a little indifferent almond eyes, a high nose bridge, a small and cute nose, and beautiful lips. Very soft, but not coquettish. Her long black hair hangs straight down. It is simply the long black hair that all men dream of. Looking down, she was dressed in an ordinary slave dress, but even though she was still young, she still stood tall, and the little lotus showed her sharp horns and looked so young and lovely. "Hey, rude man, what are you looking at?" Hancock was a little angry. He saved the guy in front of him for the sake of being a slave, but the guy kept looking at him rudely. Hancock suddenly became a little angry and was about to activate the fruit power in his hand to petrify this guy forever. "Ah, sister. No, let's leave here quickly. If we are caught by the celestial dragons again later, we will never be able to leave." Sander Sonia on the side saw the angry Hancock and immediately hugged her anxiously. They had already wasted too much time here, and the main task now was to escape from this dirty place. "Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to look at you." Corey was a little panicked. I really don't blame him for this. Even though Hancock is still young, she already has the charm of being the most beautiful woman in the world in the future. In addition, the sweet fruit has added charm to him. If Corey is, it would be strange if we could block it. The 3 Hancocks ignored him and hurriedly ran towards the port of Mariehua. In this situation, only taking a boat could successfully escape from this place. The situation in Mariehua is very urgent now. Marine, hurry up and send more manpower. You must not let those slaves escape from Mariehua. This will be an unprecedented scandal for the world government. Otherwise, Humph, you could do whatever you want. St. Nazarov's sneer came over the phone. Snap! The call bug was hung up on Sengoku's gloomy face, which made Sengoku, who was originally in a good mood, suddenly feel a little gloomy. Sengoku Admiral, Mariehua was attacked. Atlas asked, who was listening to the entire conversation. He did have an impression. It seemed that in 1507, in the Sea Circle calendar, the Holy Land Mariehua was invaded by a fishman named Fisher Tiger. And in the future, the most beautiful pirate empress in the world, Boa Hancock, was also rescued at this time. Um, Sengoku pondered for a while, and then quickly made arrangements. Atlas, you happen to be here. You will now lead a warship to Mariehua to assist the CP department in completing their mission. I will arrange for Porcelino and Jiaji is following behind. It's really troublesome. Just help. If it's not completed, don't blame us, Marine. Chapter 100, I just woke up and I can't control it well. Marine 4 Harbor. A warship is moored quietly on the sea. There are about 2,000 Marine soldiers on the warship ready to go. This is a large Marine standard warship. It has to be said that Sengoku's work efficiency is still very high. As soon as he was given an order here, ships and soldiers were prepared there. It's just, Atlas may have to live up to Sengoku's hard work this time. If he fails by then, it will be justified. After all, Atlas is just a small rear admiral now. As for vice admiral, what? Isn't it that the awarding ceremony hasn't been held yet? Hey, little brother, would you mind taking me for a ride? It's true that Sengoku Admiral wants me to get up and work overtime at such a late hour. Just as Atlas was thinking, an obscene voice came from behind him. Needless to say, the only person who could engrave the word obscene in his words and deeds was Kizaru, besides Kaji. Kizaru, Vice Admiral, why are you so efficient this time? I thought you were going to follow behind. Atlas turned around and teased Kizaru. There is nothing I can do. My warship is still under repair, and Sengoku Admiral has not prepared a warship for me, so I can only use yours for a while. Kizaru frowned and said with some embarrassment, That's really embarrassing. A warship will greatly reduce my work efficiency. Yeah, I don't know if Marine pays overtime, but I don't accept unpaid overtime. Atlas and Kizaru looked at each other and responded to each other tacitly. Okay, I won't say any more nonsense. Everyone is here. Target, Holy Land, Mariehua. The huge warship slowly left the port of Marineford and sailed towards Mariehua in an orderly manner. Dawn breaks and light appears. When the warship arrived at Mariehua successfully, almost half of the sky in Mariehua was illuminated by fire, and there were runaway slaves and captured guards everywhere. However, not all slaves are bent on escaping. There are always a small number of people who no longer care about life and death. Taking advantage of the chaos and taking revenge may be their only purpose. However, there are only a few people who dare to challenge the authority of the world's nobles like the middle-aged strongmen. Others may be out of anger, but have nowhere to vent and can only selectively retaliate against the port city below Mariehua. Marine, you're finally here. Why is there only one warship? Just as the warship docked at the port, a man wearing a black and white mask, his whole body hidden in darkness, approached Atlas and Kizaru, who were talking. Huh? Are you a gutter rat teaching me how to do things? Atlas heard this guy's questioning tone and retorted somewhat unhappily. He didn't have a good impression of the people in the CP department to begin with, and Marine was not affiliated with them, so Atlas didn't need to give him any face. Ju. Okay, I'll leave this to you, Atlas. I'd better go to the Holy Land, Mariehua, to have a look. After all, it wouldn't be good to disturb the world's nobles. Seeing that the masked man seemed to want to attack, Kizaru quickly interrupted and brought out the celestial dragons as a shield. The masked man had no choice but to give up after hearing this. Although Marine and the CP department have never been easy to deal with, unlike Marine, the CP department serves the celestial dragons wholeheartedly. Everything is centered on the celestial dragons. This is what they have accepted since childhood. Of education, anything can give way to the needs of the celestial dragons. No problem, leave this to me. My conquerors are great for clearing the place. Conquerors, how terrible. As soon as he finished speaking, Kizaru's entire body turned into light elements and flew towards Mariehua, leaving Atlas with a depressed look on his face. If he hadn't known that Kizaru's usual tone of voice was like this, he almost thought that Kizaru was mocking him just now. Conqueror CP0 on the side was a little stunned. He just heard that only Sengoku of Marine had revealed Conqueror's haki. He didn't expect that the young Marine in front of him also had that kind of qualification. He knew that people like Marine and their CP department were basically not the same. May wake up Conquerors, especially their CP department. What a scary bunch of guys. The sight of Atlas enveloped the entire port city, and the movements of countless people were clearly visible. It was not clear whether the terrible he meant was the celestial dragons or this group of raging slaves. "Mr. Marine, please stop this riot quickly." CP0's tone this time was much better. I wonder if he had been with celestial dragons for too long. He always thought that he had that kind of unscrupulous power, and there was always a sense of superiority in his words. "Really? Why are you urging me?" Atlas rubbed his brows impatiently. His pupils trembled slightly, and a powerful haki spurted out. "Buzz." Everyone in the city, whether they were escaped slaves or guards chasing him everywhere, felt a sense of oppression in their hearts. "You despicable slaves! How dare you run away?" "Ugh!" The three Boa and Hancock sisters watched the guard who was snarling at them slowly fall down, and their brains couldn't calm down for a while. Haki. Hancock, who was still the most qualified, was the first to notice something strange. He looked at the location of the port with some uncertainty, then picked up the three sisters and ran towards the refuge ship prepared by Tiger. "Scared me." The gray-green-haired Tetsolo patted his withered chest with lingering fear. At the same time, he carefully picked up the weapon that had just fallen from the ground and slammed it at the guard lying on the ground. The same scene is happening in every corner of this city. Many people who were supposed to die in this turmoil may have their fate changed. Hey, what are you doing?" The CP0 next to Atlas naturally noticed the abnormality and immediately asked Atlas loudly, "I'm really sorry. My Conqueror's awakening time was too short. I was still a little out of control and made a mistake." Atlas said he was sorry, but his expression showed no apology at all. What a liar. CP0 was a little angry. This guy was obviously helping these slaves, but he couldn't do anything about this BD Marine. His face under the mask was even a little distorted. "Oomph. I will definitely report this matter to the Five Elders. You should think carefully about how to give Sengoku an explanation."
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.